Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back once more to some Faceit League action. And Dex, we have been covering the regular season for both North and South America here for what's coming up on, I believe, at least 2 months now. It's been an absolutely crazy time, but at last, we have reached the promised land. The playoffs is upon us here, and while we're going to be covering some North America expert in their first round later on, we're focusing here on South America in their Master Playoff. And remember, Dex, what is on the line here? One of the last spots remaining for EWC coming up here at the end of the month. I mean, one of the teams that could be going might be one of the two teams right here today between Elements and Factor X.
Yeah, absolutely. If you remember about 8-9 weeks ago, that's when these two teams met off in the first week of the regular season, and it was coming off of Copa America, where Team Brazil ended up beating Team Chile in a really exciting grand final there. Elements, they are the majority of Elements is the entirety of that Team Brazil. Granted, Factor X, they do have one or two members from Team Brazil and a mixture of some of those Team Chile players, but Factor X, up until last week, the last week of the regular season, was one of the only teams to take a map off of Elements. Well, Warfist made sure they took a map and then a little bit more by beating them 3-0. Elements looking to bounce back for the first time this season, and Hunter, it's in a really important spot here in the playoffs.
Yeah, it really is, and as y'all that are watching can see, I've pulled up that original matchup that we had between Elements and Factor X. I believe it was the first game we actually covered as well for South America, and that ended up being a really fun time. We had the Circuit Royale shenanigans that were a lot of fun as well. That was that game, but it ended up being a really good game between these two teams, and I think it was at a point where we didn't realize just how good Elements was going to do. We knew they were a really good squad, but Factor X was, to us going into that, an unknown name, but we learned very quickly that as a team that is not to be underestimated, and the fact that they managed to get third, the fact that they are one of only two teams to make Elements bleed, that means they need to be taken as a serious threat, because if Elements go in here after taking their very first loss in God knows how long, this could be Factor X's opportunity to take advantage of that fact and find themselves in the upper finals.
Yeah, and we and you talked about it this last week after we got done with our South American broadcast on Thursday. This matchup here, Elements and Factor X, could be one of those ones that does provide maybe a big upset here early on, because we know how good this Factor X team is. And you talk about not necessarily knowing Factor X by name, but some of the players on this roster here we've known. LCS has been someone that at least I have known, I believe you know them as well, for about 3 years at this point. I casted this player in Tranquility. Gotta rest that old tournament here. But Pedro Jodello Romani as well, WedTube, and everyone else on this Factor X lineup. We've casted them a couple times in the regular season. Really good team. Romani and Burt will probably sub in and out here throughout the series, but that's just it here. This is a really good squad. However, like you said, Elements, man, a couple times we've seen them, they have been scary. They want to make sure they return to that scary form here tonight.
Exactly. You want to be able to go in back into Warfist in their highest account. But of course, speaking of Warfist, they have their match currently going on at the same time against Phoenix Rising, who again, a team that managed to work their way through after some really tough losses to get that fourth and final spot, which came off the back. I believe it was a very convincing win against, it was Pumas, I believe. Yep. They came out on top of that win 3-0 in good succession. So obviously, we'll keep y'all updated in that game as well. But for this map, getting things going, Ilios, a map that we don't see very often, but we had this very same conversation last week about it not being something we've seen often, and lo and behold, it's before our faces yet again.
Yeah, I mean, we've gone through a little bit of a cycle here with all the maps, at least in South America, where for the most part it was Busan, then it was Oasis, and now we're back to Ilios here, using all the maps in the map pool right now. And I like this pick coming out of here from Elements. You probably want to come out here, play a little bit aggressively. Dive is strong on a lot of the maps, but you could play Brawl, especially on a map like Ruins. Yeah, you could still play Dive because the high grounds do provide some form of really good just coverage, but a lot of the times you don't want to see the teams go to Brawl. However, bans are happening right now, and it seems like, well, Elements, they don't want to deal with Hazard here this first map, which, Hunter, in the past couple weeks, we've definitely seen Hazard being played more and more here in this region.
Yeah, it has become a bit more of a common occurrence. I think through all regions it really has. But South America might be one of the stronger examples of it because for the longest time, and I think still to a degree, Orisa has been that comfortable tank that we have seen from a lot of these tank players within South America and even North American EMEA. It's just kind of the way things have trended. But I think Hazard is still a great character. I think he can still act very quickly, and like Ramatra, has the ability to block out a ton of damage and can last really long in the center of a fight. So I'm excited to see how it's going to work out as we're waiting for these teams to finalize their rosters going to this one. Gonna see if there's going to be any changes out the gate here. Like you said, Bert occasionally does come in, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is the 5 we end up starting with since Romani coming in. Romani has been, I mean, just lights out on that tank throughout the season.
Yeah, I mean, when we've seen Romani play for this Factor X team, they look great. Well, we've seen Bert play. I mean, we've definitely seen Bert make big differences in the past. However, when you look over at Element side, Lovicio, Shinigami, Mocha, Froki, Cabadella, I mean, those are really 5 strong players. You do still have a couple of subs on the bench, but we really haven't seen a lot of them throughout the season. But Hunter, ban number 2 is in here, and this is the first time I feel like we're seeing a Genji ban.
Yeah, I guess it might not be the most shocking thing in the world. Not because of the fact that we haven't seen it in quite a while, because Genji just generally is good in these situations, you know? Is sometimes an alternative, something like the Tracer, like the Sojourn. And this might be a scenario where they realize, hey, we don't want to let a specific somebody go in on this Genji and make something happen. Because, I mean, I speak from personal experience with a certain player that's really good at the Genji. Sometimes you just got to target ban that. And honestly, on a map like Ilios, it might be one of the strongest maps that you might have as a Genji player. But either way, Dex, you are not heard, my friend. You are not being heard. But we're going to go ahead and cut over to the game here for a moment while Dex goes ahead and figures that fun stuff out. Audio issues always a fun time here in Faceit as, hey, you are back.
Yeah, you have to love when your XLR dies. But yeah, you talk about Genji, especially on a map like this. Like you said, one of the best Genji maps just because of how good all the high grounds are on every point. Granted, there's some points where the high grounds are a little bit further away from the point, but on the one that we're starting off on here on Well, high grounds all around the capture point really makes Genji incredibly strong. But coming out of the gate, Romani gonna be playing the Jungle Queen, Lovicio going over to the Orisa. Kind of tells you 2 different kind of play styles these teams are going for here. Factor X, they want to play fast, and they want to get in your face. Sustained might be the name of the game here for Elements.
Yeah, and you're waiting for Drudelo to get that TP back on. You're probably going to try to TP directly onto this backline, and you heard it right now. They're trying to go through Shout, ends up getting expended, but they're going to be pushed back from that spin from Luvico. But Luvico's got to be careful not to get separated, because the moment that gold form is out, they're simply going to get hit with that knife and pulled in. Now, luckily, Romani misses, so we're trading back and forth. It's being a good shot for Petal to bring things back. If Romani can just stay alive and work with people, they should be able to help pull this one back, but this is an incredibly scrappy first fight to get things going, and Romani can't seem to find heads or tails right now.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're Factor X, you might just be looking to back out of this one, and probably after this point, the fastest way might just be death. You do see LCS coming back in, give WebTube some support, but I mean, Lubico is coming back in here for Elements. You just kind of have to regroup here if you're Factor X.
Yeah, you absolutely have to right now. It's already been in over on the favor right now, you know, for the last bit of time, already sitting at that 30% marker. So right now, just trying to make something happen, but no one has definitively won this fight. But all this time, they literally have just building up more and more charge. But eventually, Romani and squad looking like they're finally going to be able to close this thing up. Just a couple more strikes. Oh, what a boop!
And that's the thing, you have to be very wary on this point. And I mean, with WebTube investing the Consuming Rush there, look at what Elements is doing. They're just getting out. It doesn't matter to them. They got out the ultimate they were truly looking for there. Froki's gonna come back in with there. Mocha's gonna have their own beat. I mean, right now, if you're Elements, yeah, you're not controlling the point, but you got rid of that ultimate there from WebTube, and you feel very, very great about it. Petal, though, might be able to buy some time with Deadeye. However, we've really seen it here in the past, in these past couple months, that Orisa is starting to become a really good counter to Deadeye, especially if they can land the Javelin.
Yep, 100%. So excited to see how things are going to go from here. Cabalata does have this pulse bomb ready to go. Going to stick it directly onto the face. Ends up getting the 2K. WebTube going down with them. And that might decide things right then and there. Romani going to be nowhere close to that ultimate. So Drudelo just going to have to pull back, use those, use them to be able to stop them. But already 50% and counting so far. Elements seem to have it figured out.
Yeah, but again, one ult used there for Elements, really good value as well. I mean, 2 ults. The Pulse Bomb really sealed the deal. Froki's Kitsune Rush just helped them get in. However, you still have Beat, you still have Overclock, and you have that Terror Surge. That Terror Surge gonna be the perfect thing you're looking here to maybe potentially try to combo it with Shinigami's Overclock, but no, they're gonna go off first, but Jodelo finds the first pick.
Yeah, and Shinigami gets super low, and now Terror Surge getting activated. Gonna try to get some bodies in there. Gonna try to get Romani. Romani just had nowhere to run, gets separated, but that doesn't mean the fight is over. This might come on the back of Petal, trying to get a couple of nice clicks as Luvico goes in a little too far, so now the possibility truly exists of this fight being turnable for Factor X, but Petal just doesn't have enough left in that fight to make it happen. Web 2 down and now 92% and counting. LCS needs to live for a touch, but now it's just Odell and Romani that have to force it.
Romani does have that Rampage, gonna be able to get a touch that way. If they can find Mocha, they might have enough to say here, but no, it's just not gonna be enough. Jodel's gonna try to do what they can, but I mean, it was a good first attempt here by Factor X to get in, but I just think the slight difference in compositions here for Elements was the biggest thing. And like I said, go back to Lubico. On that Orisa, a lot more sustained. And I mean, you saw it there a lot throughout that first point, especially. Factor X, it seemed like at points they had one member on every corner of the point. Granted, that works if you have the advantage, but anytime they were doing that, they were always trading out, so it was never necessarily in their advantage. But coming out onto Ruins, again, this is the one map I thought we would see a lot of brawl potential on. And you do see Lubico go over to the Ramatra here. No big swaps other than WebTube still sticking on the Juno here, which is a late swap, and LCS going over to the Brig. For Factor X, I like this a little bit better though for Factor X. I think Brig right now really strong. I think there's a lot of people who think Brig might just be a tad bit strong, but I'm here for it. I really like the play style. Mocha though on this Lucio Hunter, you really have to watch out. They know when to be aggressive and find the value with damage, and just when to stay back and play safe.
Yeah, honestly, I've been really impressed throughout the season so far. As you can see, Fidello has to move in pretty far in to get some effectiveness over on this. Immediately going to use the Nemesis form is Luvico just to survive, give themselves the ability to stay in the fight for as long as that cooldown ends up activating forward. But Jodello sitting at 1 health, manages to pull away, living momentarily. Shinigami getting super low, but Petal not able to find the killing blow. As Luvico getting back that Nemesis form means they can survive a little bit longer, but for the time being, have to surrender the point. But without two going down, Romani too far behind. This percentage they're going to get is end up going to be pretty low.
Yeah, and I mean, you're going to see him just stagger out here. Going to be able to get 9%, and Jodello will be the last one to fall. I mean, good job there by Factor X to at least get the point cap here, but now you see Romani give up on the Junker Queen. I think that's the right move. LCS going back over to the Lucio as well. I think this combination they have works out a lot better. Jodello's sticking on the Symmetra, though. It's going to be really interesting to see how much longer they stick on that, because TP strategies are really fun and can work, but right now, it seems like they're just getting caught out most of the time.
Yeah, and Cabalata goes for that bomb. Unfortunately, ends up getting booped away, so it kind of just airballs out as TP has been activated. Ends up being more of a bait than anything else as they just push in traditionally. Everybody drops back to take care of it as Deadeye has been activated. It's going to force bodies off this point here, and I imagine it's probably going to force the flip.
Flip does come out, but Kitsune Rush out from the other side here. I want to see how Elements really comes back into this fight.
Yeah, I'm curious how it's going to go. Shinigami does have the ability to get away with using their ultimate right now, but might not have to, as once again, it's going to flip over for virtually just the Kitsune Rush, as now you're going to be picked off potentially one at a time, as the rest of Factor X just has to run and take another reset.
And honestly, right now, I really feel like Factor X needs to have a Kiriko on their side. The Lucio's working out fine. Web2 does have this orbital ray, but there's so much on the other side that can cancel it out. The beat for Mocha, Shinigami could throw out their orbital ray, and Lubico not that far away from their own annihilation. That will basically cancel out any orbital ray that comes out here. However, you really have nothing else on the side of Factor X, but hey, getting rid of Mocha early means no beat.
Yeah, Shinigami hopes to still find something in this scenario, gets super low and just kind of gets pelted the moment they pop their head out. Petal getting a couple clicks to end this one away. A little bit more stall being activated here from Cabalata to get themselves an extra few percentages and puts them pretty close to that one fight territory. But now 20% and up, this is going to be a journey for Factor X to pull this one back.
Yeah, it's going to be really hard, but they're rotating into a good ult economy at the moment here. They're going to have Beat, they're going to have Terror Surge, they're going to have Deadeye here pretty soon. Yeah, you could almost say the same thing for the other side as well, but Lubico's Annihilation, I think, can be really kited out here by LCS's Beat, so you just have to play it very smart. You have to basically be holding that Beat now for that Annihilation. If you use it any earlier, it just allows Lubico here to really have it for free.
Yeah, I could see Mocha potentially going in aggressive with this beat here momentarily as Petal hoping to find something. Boop over onto Froakie, but still very much has the ability to hold on. Deadeye ends up finding a lot. Beat is activated, and LCS has to use it pretty much immediately as Romani hoping to find something with the Terra Surge. Bodies are getting low, but the stick comes through, deletes them on the spot, and now Cabalata in squad and moving forward. And you're seeing right now a hesitance to go and die on this point, but eventually they're flooding on one at a time. Jodello does manage to find one, but eventually going to get taken out, as that should be the clear away from the point. LCL still trying to hang around with WebTube, their counterpart, and so far, they're actually holding on, but LCS is going to be the last component, and unfortunately, being the Ramattra, they will not.
Yeah, but LCS can fall back quickly, pick up Romani, and then try to go right back in, and that's exactly what they're going to do here, but you see the rest of Elements coming back in fast as well.
Oh, no.
I mean, Romani's going to need to back out here and quickly regroup with the rest of their team.
Yeah, and they're going to use that City Rush, because if they get Romani, this might just be over right here and now, but for the time being, has been given the survivability. WebTube is back into the fight, but now with 95% and counting, Jodello is going to have to be the ultimate toucher right now, is already more than set up for it. Will manage to get the touch, trying to bring some pressure into the backline onto Froakie, trying to force a TP, so they're a little more vulnerable, but Lubico going to move in with this Nemesis form, getting super low on Romani, but Lubico themselves getting low too, and just is in the belly of the beast when it comes to that orbital ray, and now once more, Elements going to be forced back further and further. You can already see they're going to give up this point and go for one more fight.
Yeah, but the smartest thing Elements did there was just back out. They didn't die on point. They didn't need to stall it out any longer there. So now they're gonna have a little bit of a quick regroup here and go right back in. They have Pulse Bomb. They have Overclock, which, I mean, yeah, Pulse Bomb from Cabadella did find Romani last time, and the Overclock got canceled out by the Orbital Ray, but there's no Orbital Ray on the other side. Now, if you're Factor X, you're looking at Petal and you're looking at LCS to build those ultimates very quickly here, because they might be the reason that they force a third point here.
Yep, Recall already has been thrown out by Jodello right now. Petal, though, managed to get rid of Mocha right now. Going for the Pulse Bomb onto the stick. It does catch onto Petal. But Petal does manage to take them out in the process. So now, advantage currently sitting over on Factor X, and more as he's be falling their way. Just got to keep Romani up. And with that goal form, with some great healing, it looks like round 3 is going to be forced as Factor X starting to unpiece the puzzle.
I mean, Factor X, like we kind of said on first point, they had the right idea. I just didn't think they had the right composition. They made the swaps over here, went to that Orisa. You saw the main difference there. They were playing it very, very more smarter. The sustainability for Romani was huge as well. Wed 2, again, the only one I had a question mark on, really sticking on that Judo turned out to be the right thing for them in the end. However, on the other side, what do you do now if you're Elements? I mean, you won that first point pretty convincingly, but I mean, you got to 99%. Fell back smartly, but just weren't able to do anything else after that. Swaps, though, coming out here yet again. Jodello, I would imagine, probably swaps back over to the Tracer after a TP out, but you see Romani on the Diva. Lubico on back over to the Orisa here. Romani on the Diva. This is what I kind of thought we would see, especially on this map from Factor X. We see it from them in the past. They need to get on that backline. They need to try to force out TP. They need to try to force out Amp It Up. They need to try to force out everything from that support line. That's what makes it easier for the rest of that DPS line to do their job.
Yeah, exactly. Gonna see the early force of the recall onto Cabalata, who's got to play just a little bit safer now. And you see right now, Romani is kind of giving their life to push Cabalata further and further back. And end of the day, that's gonna go Jello more freedom to kind of move in and take fights of their own without having to worry about interference. This point will open up, and for the time being, Factor X trying to rally for their own position as more and more bodies starting to make their way towards the point. But Lubico ends up getting taken out by the boop, and now things looking a little messy right here with him being taken out. As point looks like it's inevitably going to flip back over, and for the time being, Elements might have to take a reset.
You know, we saw it on point 1 on Well with the boop. I mean, you know this map in particular is a haven for environmental kills from the support lines. You have to know it. Almost getting the point flip there is Elements, but you see Lubico come back out here on the Winston. This is a much better pick, especially into the composition that Factor X is running.
Yeah, Mocha not going to get up, but Froakie will be able to do so. We'll be able to get a lot of ult charge as well from Lubico, who just took a beating going in on there. So realistically, having double support ultimates around the corner for both sides here mid-fight is looking very possible.
Petal, Deadeye, Jodello, Pulse Bomb, though, ready to go here. So you could see that used early, which Petal normally seems to like to use it at least early on in engagement, just to try to buy some time and buy some space for the rest of their team to really get set up in. But Lubico getting very low here, Hunter.
Oh, yeah, ends up having it to cleanse right now, but they don't have anything. Pulse Bomb comes out and misses, unfortunately. So now we're back into a 4v4. Possibility to come back in this fight is very much ill. Froakie does have that Consented Rush, is going to activate it pretty much instantaneously as Petal going to try to find something with this Deadeye, forcing bodies apart. Pulse Bomb comes out, does not stick, and now you're just hoping on the back of some Chaos here as Beat is activated, keeps Petal alive, and Factor X are sitting at 60%, and I think at this point Dex is going to keep counting further and further as with the path of that Orbital Ray, the rest of Elements will once again have to take a reset and realistically got one fight left in the bank.
I mean, but again, Elements able to back out. A great play there by them. You're gonna have overclock here from Shinigami, but Luvico, you're looking at them right now saying they need to build up to that Primal Rage or else this could be curtains for this map, and Luvico already very low on Health Hunter.
Playing a very dangerous game right now, and in fact, he's going to go and force the point, but Mocha ends up going down, and now Shinigami, the only ulta on their team, has gone down as well, and now they're being burnt away one after another by Morani. You know what, Dex? At the end of the day, you just need to give them the sub-map, you know, they'll figure it out, because at this point, you're looking for the touch right now, 99%. Unfortunately, nothing there for Mocha, and that is 100-0, ending it for Factor X, taking the first map, and oh boy, Factor X starting strong.
Factor X starting strong, and I mean, they improved on everything I kind of talked about was the problem they had on the first point. If they came back into a comp on the second point that was a little bit more sustained after still trying to make the Queen work for a fight, I think they were smart. They made swaps the right time. Elements, though, they didn't. That was the weirdest thing. Normally in the past, we've seen this Element squad make smart swaps at the right time. It just wasn't the case this time. And even when you look at the stats in this map, you see Elements and you look at the stats they have and you're wondering, how'd they lose this one? Well, Petal, I think, was a carry for this Factor X team. They were always finding so many early picks, allowing the rest of their team to play a little bit freely. Most elims on the Factor X team there with 23. Next closest was Romani with 17. I mean, Petal was doing a lot there. Romani was making the space so that Petal could have the shots.
Yeah, 100%. We'll pull off those stats right here, actually, to kind of double down on what really happened out there. And to be fair, over the board we see here, everything's relatively consistent between everybody on both sides. But you talked about all that damage that came out from Petal, someone who's very consistent. And to be fair, ever since joining this Factor X squad in the middle of the season, has been very consistent. We saw them in that very first matchup where I believe they came out, and I believe it was the Widowmaker on Circuit Royale, where they are popping off consistently, and they were instantly seen as a threat here. But to be fair, Elements, I mean, has been fighting really good in their own right. The way they went out that first map was with a lot of confidence, was with a lot of understanding as to what they were looking at from their opponent. But again, the thing that's really good about this Factor X squad is how they are able to adapt and fight against literally everybody in this division. That's why they are such a threat and a team that people will consider such.
Yeah, and I think especially right now, handing Elements a map loss here again, they did it back in week 1, but now this is Elements' 4th straight map loss. Yeah. I mean, it's not, if you're Elements right now, I mean, you're going to have to kind of bounce back from this one very quickly, or else you're going to start spiraling down a way you do not want to go. Because, Hunter, we've definitely seen it in the NA Masters tier where a team started off red hot, lost 1 or 2 games here, and then just spiraled out of control. Still made playoffs, but it's going to be a rough show for them right now. But Elements, we've seen it from them in the past. I think this team should be able to make that bounce back, but they need to do it here quickly because you do not want to go down 0-2 on Factor X and give Factor X 3 tries to win one map. Yeah,
you don't want that to have to go down that way. As we're kind of waiting for things to go through right now, I believe either they picked so quickly that we didn't get the opportunity to talk about it.
Quickly.
They either did that or something is kind of buggy right now, because I realize the match between Warfist and Phoenix Rising is currently on hold right now. I'm not specifically sure why. It looks like Warfist had won the first map, but I'm not exactly sure how things went down elsewise outside of that. I guess we're just waiting on things to come through. We'll find out when that clock hits 0. I think we'll know pretty quickly what's going on. It looks like it is taken care of, but the hero bans are definitely not correct. Unless
so we won't actually know what the hero bans are for our second map of the night. We're gonna be going to Hollywood.
Yeah.
Which dive. So
yeah.
I mean, I don't like right now. It's not showing us the hero bans. Genji and Hazard are the ones that are showing, but that was map 1. However, going into this map, I feel like if you are Elements, probably banning out a Diva would probably be the way to go. If you especially know Romani's gonna be back in, we just saw how good they were there, and this map, at least for the first 2 points, known as a heavy dive map. So getting rid of the Diva, forcing them to play something like a Winston, something like a Hazard, something like a Doom or a Ball, really does maybe put them to a spot where Romani might not be the most comfortable. And outside of that, for Factor X, I'm trying to think what they would ban out here. Would it be the Kiri? Since we didn't necessarily see that from them a lot, they seem to favor the Lucio and the Juno, or Juno Brig. So we could see Kiri be banned out here, but just kind of waiting right now.
Yeah, because it does seem that there is some bugginess going on. The fact that the game has been put on hold very much follows the ideology. So it might be a thing overall. But we do know Warfist and Phoenix Rising, I believe, are starting their second map right now. They're going into Watchpoint to Gibraltar. Venture and Ana bans. The Venture ban is a very interesting one overall. But I feel like I remember seeing Venture at one point from Phoenix Rising, if I'm not mistaken. I can't seem to remember who it was, but I feel like I remember seeing such. But either way, we're just waiting for everything to be fixed over in this game with Elements Factor X. I imagine there's some quick talks with some of the staff over at Faceit. We had a bit of a similar problem last week where they just had to go and make their own custom game and had to end up reporting the results. Ended up working out just fine for them. We're going to find out pretty soon whether or not that's going to be the case, as we're no longer in a lobby, so it seems that Dex, at the very least, they seem to be doing something to fix the issue.
Yeah, at this point, they're trying to figure something out here with it. But again, it's not a. I mean, this is almost a normal thing, and probably a lot of the Faceit games going on throughout the week here, especially with it being playoffs. I bet you there's probably some format that we might just be missing out on. But right now, I mean, if you're Elements, you still played an incredible first map right there. I mean, again, like I said, when you look at the stats, you're trying to wonder, like, how did Elements lose this? I mean, their DPS line has more elims, their supports have more elims. The only spot where there's not more elims is the tank, but it's only by 2. I mean, everyone on Elements did a really good job there. I just think once Factor X started to get the ball rolling, especially on Lighthouse, Elements just really didn't have a good answer for it. The Winston just seemed to get punished almost every time they threw it out there. And besides that, Romani on the Diva seemed to be giving them nightmares just with how maneuverable they were and how good they were at staying in that mech.
Yeah, and I think without seeing the stats beforehand, the one person I would have called the hidden MVP, honestly, was WedTube over on the side of Factor X. I think they were extremely consistent. The fact that they died as little as they did as well, managing to pump out nearly 17,000 healing within those 3 rounds. It makes things very easy for Romani to kind of work with what they do, because you remember that fight where WedTube was just hanging around for a while with LCS, and they nearly took back a point, and at that point they're able to regroup, somehow managed to keep Romani alive during that whole exchange, and then they come back and end up winning that fight and forcing it over, which is what ultimately ended up forcing that last fight scenario. Or I should more say, the ability for them to get to that position, because they were just sitting under 20% before they got in that situation. And if Romani would have died there, I mean, you're looking at a situation where you probably weren't able to come back in that situation, losing your tank at 80+%.
Yeah, I mean, Factor X did an incredible job, especially on Ruins. Like you said, that support line did a lot. And here we go. Hollywood's still going to be the second map, but the bans are interesting. I'll give it that.
Yeah.
It looks like Elements deciding to ban out the Ramatra, which I see that. I understand that ban, especially for maybe second point going in the third point. But outside of that, first point, it's a little bit of a stretch, maybe. But Kiriko, that was a ban I thought we would see from Factor X, because they have been showing us that they didn't really want to play, or just didn't really want to play there on the first map. So banning out second map doesn't really hurt them as much as it probably does Elements.
Yeah, 100%. I would agree with that in this situation. It is one of those maps as well that Kiriko can get a lot of value, because sometimes teams will go with the Ana Brig counterparts, but we have seen a lot of teams actually kind of go back towards the Lucio Kiriko in these situations, and WedTube in this situation is not going to opt for the Juno, currently sitting over on the Baptiste, which, to be fair, having the Orisa, I don't hate it at all. WedTube isn't really good at survivability as well. If they're able to hang on this high ground and have really good positioning, I mean, trying to reach them on this current composition that Elements is running might become very difficult.
Yeah, and right now, I mean, BAP has slowly came back into being one of those supports that is being played a lot, and it's always a fun thing, especially because it really gives you essentially a faux third DPS, because BAP can do DPS numbers if they really want to here and put out a lot of healing. And it's gonna be difficult, in my opinion, here for Elements to really get going here on this attack, but they're coming out on what I really expected them to. Romani's sticking on the Orisa as well. Outside of that, I mean, Jodello, I love the sim play from him as someone who plays sim probably way too much. But this point in particular, first point of Hollywood, Sim can make it a living hell. Jodello just has to get everything set up correctly, and Romani needs to get help.
Romani has been playing really aggressively throughout the entire game so far, and honestly, he hasn't really been punished for it so far, but now Shinigami has 2 picks of their own. They're clearing things away, and to be honest, that first point should already be done and dusted. There's a TP set up here, but a retouch, I think, is too difficult, and I would imagine Jodello should swap probably almost immediately.
Yeah, Jodello's trying to get back to the spawn room to make that swap. Not going to be able to, so they're actually going to go back to the previous spawn room. And Genji being played here for Jodello. So kind of showing us here, Genji was banned out first map. We might be seeing the reason here for Jodello, but hey, we're talking about Elements making the bounce back here. That is a good way to do it. Reestablish yourself in this series, win a quick team fight like that. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Romani playing a little bit too aggressive here to start off this series. Hasn't been punished just yet, but this is a good map for them to be punished.
Yeah, it really is in this scenario. Romani is literally in the middle of nowhere right now. You're going to have that Ant Matrix come out as well, forcing them back further and further. Petal is in a nice scenario too, where they're not really affected by it. They're going to have a big dynamite here momentarily that catches on to multiple people, and it's burning more and more damage in to give them the bob for this oncoming fight. But Romani, again, ends up going down first, and Matrix going to be thrown into the middle of everywhere by Wetube, and somehow it's working out. The modern-day Shu in South America popping off with the 2K, and realistically gonna stop Element's reign here momentarily.
And like I said, you want that BAP there to be that low third DPS, and that's exactly what happened right there. You lose Romani, you immediately drop down, pop that Ant Matrix, you find 2. You force a fallback here. This is exactly what you needed. Romani, though, again, you have to be in the right spot. They've been punished now twice for falling off the high ground both times and maybe just playing a little bit too aggressive. Petal, though, in a bad spot, does have Bob to get them out of a situation, which, Hunter, my feeling is they might be using Bob here soon.
Yeah, to be fair, if there is a big aggression that comes through directly from Luvico right now, who doesn't have the spin quite yet, Petal would probably go for it. But to be honest, you also want to be careful because they can simply back it off and let that Bob simply fly away. That's why you're waiting for the engager right now. Shinigami ends up getting pushed back further and further. And in fact, it's just really never for them to even get in there. As Romani is going to give up the high ground. Petal is going to let go of that Bob, but it's in a position that honestly really convenient up there, ends up being burnt away in time as Petal manages to get Froki in the ensuing chaos. And now, at this point, Dex, Romani is going to keep pushing further and further and further, as all you can do as Elements is kind of just hang around and do a little regroup.
Yeah, but this time Romani actually has their team around them rather than on opposite high ground.
Yes.
However, I love Petal's use of Bob there. They used it to really counter out Mocha's rally. They forced them just to use that stun bash on the high ground, and by the time they got back down that low ground, it was only there for a second. Everyone from Factor X just played back safe here. Terrace is ready for both side hunters, so I would not be surprised if you see those come out here momentarily. Yeah,
Jodello does have a Blade coming up online as well. It could be very useful right now as Petal can be able to get rid of one. Blade is activated, trying to double down here, cutting away the body after body. He's to find them, and eventually the cuts are coming through. Petal helping clear things away. It's a 2 ultimate investment right there, but they're clearing further and further. But now, Elements has 4 ultimates on their side.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say. Elements, 4 ultimates coming into the engagement here. I mean, Deadeye from Shinigami is going to probably use a lot how Petal used it last map for his zoning. And if they can find a pick, hey, it's icing on top of the cake. But now you're walking into an Ant Matrix, a Pulse Bomb, and a Terra Surge. Which Terra Surge and Pulse Bomb can be used as a combo here if you really want to. But right now, I love how Factor X is playing. They're playing very smart. They're playing together, which is exactly what you want here.
Yeah, it's exactly what they're doing. Kabbalada's trying to find something here right now, but Jodello's literally just hanging around the top of a point. It is literally forcing all of the attention as, again, a pick is found. M-Matrix gets used by Froki. Unfortunately, it's clearing space, but not doing a whole lot at the end of the day. His Pulse Bomb from Kabbalada ends up missing as Factor X has just high ground just on a tight seal, and unfortunately, Elements are struggling to find a way to take it.
Right now, you see Factor X going all in here to try to clean up this fight. There's the Terror Surge you're looking for. Not going to be able to find anything other than an Immortality Field.
Yeah, now there's a trade-offs coming through as Shinigami and Luvico hanging around to try to make something happen. Shinigami ends up getting a second here, so if you get a quick regroup for Elements, you might be able to finally start taking over this high ground and pushing forward.
Yeah, but right now, if you're Romani and Petal, you just need to fall back, regroup, like you said. You can give up some card progress here. If you are Factor X, you need the rest of your team to come back out. Webtube and that Ant Matrix, it helped them out a lot last time just to get themselves established on this defensive round. It could be something that really helps them secure this second point hold.
Yep, Webtube. Has that Matrix ready to go. Gonna use it pretty aggressively. Shinigami forced inside the room, and Luvico likely not gonna be too far behind. And now they have to hang around here, burning more and more time, trying to force WebTube out of the position. But again, WebTube has been so consistent so far, staying in this scenario. But now Shinigami hoping to find something with the Deadeye, is forced around, didn't really have the shot in their hands. So once again, an ult to buy a bunch of space, buy more time, as Petal gets one shot like that. And suddenly, it's going back in Element's favor.
Petal tried to get behind them and just didn't work. Terrorsurge out here from Romani. You need a follow-up here from the rest of their team, but the rest of their team is just being pressured out.
Yeah, unfortunately, Shinigami rolled at the perfect time, didn't end up taking all the damage, and now it should be a slow burn over here. And in fact, Romani and LCS gonna die off the point. LCS could be given a bit of a quick death. In fact, they will be, as a little over 2 minutes on the clock here. Not the biggest time in the world, but the fact that you're getting Petal dead this late, you gotta love it.
You gotta love it, but hey, at least Petal takes one with them. I mean, that's been one thing Petal's been really good at this round here, just being very consistent with finding picks. 11 elims, most in the lobby here at the moment. But you look at what Elements is coming in this next point push with. Pulse Bomb still, Terror Surge right around the corner, and Mocha has this rally. Rally, I think, is the one ultimate you're really looking at here for Elements to get yourself across that finish line, especially with only a Bob and some other ultimates coming up on the other side. You need to play fast, though.
Yeah, and Luvico is about to have the Terror Surge online. I imagine doesn't have the spin to be able to move forward efficiently right now, so it's simply gonna have to move in raw with their goal form. Gonna pull in 3 different bodies, Immortality Field, everything being used as well. Jodello using the blade here right now as Petal helping out with that Bob. It's only gotten rid of 1 at total so far, so right now, this is Factor X pretty much trying to hold on desperately right here as Elements are just getting pushed further and further and further. Unfortunately, it's a heavy investment from both sides, but at the end of the day, it goes into Factor's favor as, oh no.
I love this play here, making sure Froki has a long spawn here and a long stagger. Wow. But at this point, just kill them. At this point, just kill Froki. At this point, there you go.
Yeah, that
but,
is.
I mean, right now, if you're Elements, you have to fall back. You really do. Just regroup, come back in. You're going to have Amp, you're going to have Deadeye. Shinigami, though, I mean, Deadeye, you really need to find something with it this time. This cannot be used for zoning. You need to find a pick with it because Romani, I think they're gonna be looking for that javelin to find that cowboy.
Yeah, right now, you need to be able to force this out for WebTube as soon as humanly possible. The sooner it's out, the less of a worry it's going to be in this final fight. But instead, it's Froki who's going to use theirs pretty aggressively and force all this space away. Unfortunately, that's all it's going to do is force them a little further back. But this isn't going to stop Romani from doing what they want to do. WebTube now going to invest with the Terror Surge activated. Romani does ready to get rid of the Immortality Field as bodies are getting desperately low 1 at a time. And again, it's a big cleanup Kabbalada, the last team player remaining for Elements. And with them being deleted, a retouch is impossible. So 51 meters past second checkpoint is going to be the limit for Elements.
But hey, if you're Elements, this is a hard point to get at this map. I mean, we saw a second point can be incredibly difficult. And remember how slow, really, I think is the right word to say. There's probably a better word, but I'm forgetting it. Just how much of a struggle it was for Factor X on that second point defense at the start. You lost Romani early a couple times because they were just playing too aggressive. And hey, you can go back to first point. That was a point that was one and done. You don't normally see one and dones that much anymore, especially on Hollywood. You'll still see the defending team try just to get back and at least contest it for a couple seconds, but it was a true one and done situation here. So even if you're Elements, you're looking at that how far you got it, all you have to be saying to yourself is, hey, we can give up first point. If we hold it for 2-3 minutes, it's going to work out for us. We can give up second point, but you really have to be hoping that by the time that they cap second point, they're going to be in overtime. But coming out of the gate, Hunter, Factor X is teasing us with something that I would say is very, very interesting and something that I would honestly not be mad at if they came out. However, on the other side, Shinigami and Mocha and Froki as well, it seems like they're kind of expecting potentially something like this. However, with LCS making the swap there, I don't know what they're doing anymore.
You know what? I don't think it's worth saying a word until we get out the spawn doors here, but Petal being on the Reaper wouldn't be the most shocking thing in the world. I think we've seen Petal on Reaper previously before, but this comp has to play quickly, and I imagine they're just going to TP on the backline and just try to eliminate supports.
Yeah, but right now you see Mocha nowhere near that high ground you would expect him to be. Froki and Shinigami, though, they're up there. There's the TP out.
Bye, Froki. It was good knowing you, buddy, and apparently the Overwatch gods do not like first point because we are not seeing much of it here today. Both teams managed to get through on their first attempt, quite easily so. The question really is, though, Dex, is how long is this style going to work for Factor X?
Well, you already see Petal walking back towards the spawn here, so they're immediately going to make a swap over to something else. And look at what you're seeing now from Elements as well. You see the pharmacy coming out from them right now. They want to try to disrupt this comp a little bit. Romani, I mean, one thing that I thought we could see here is potentially D.Va come back out. With it not being banned, it is something you could definitely try to do. Remember, Ramatra was banned here.
Ramatra really was here, which does take away that option to kind of, honestly, have that extra survivability in the fight. Orisa is good at it, but Ramatra is fantastic at it right here, as Kabalata is forced to keep playing against the wall here simply for the fact that Petal exists right now. Livico getting rather low, trying to hang around, trying to survive. Unfortunately, doesn't do so, as now Mocha is just full committing to the pharmacy, and unfortunately, even this early on, I feel like it's safe to say this is not particularly working out for Elements right now. Holy moly.
It is not. Petal, like I said, they had a little bit of a soft carry in that first map. I think they're having the same kind of performance here right now. They are a problem for Elements. And right now you're seeing more swaps. Kabadella going back over to the Tracer. Shinigami now on to the Freya. Mocha's sticking on the Mercy. I don't necessarily know how I feel about that pick here, but it might just be for this life, and then they're going to swap off.
Yeah, maybe. Someone has to eventually shut down Petal, though, as you're trying to find that stick onto them. But instead, Matrix ends up being used by WebTube, is buying more and more spaces. Livico ends up going down. And so far, things just being disastrous for Elements as Factor X moving forward. Petal finds another shot onto Shinigami. Reds ends up coming through, but now bodies have to force their way onto the point. But unfortunately, I would be remiss to think that anything can really stop them from claiming this second point. They're going to go for the touches at 1.3 meters. Where the beat comes up online, Kabalata gets deleted. It's Livico trying to get the Sarah Surge online. Hopefully in time to do something. Has used it just to stay alive for moments more. But at this time right now, Factor X is putting on a bloodbath.
And Hunter, what did I say coming into this map? This is a map that I really thought Elements would be able to bounce back on, or else this series and potentially their season might start to slowly slip away from them. Well, 5 minutes, not even to complete the map. Factor X is putting on a little bit of a clinic right now on Hollywood. No big swaps, especially going to third point. Petal on the Widow. I'm surprised to still see him, but I like what Elements is doing here. Going from the high ground, trying to catch him by surprise.
Yeah, you kind of have to, but Jodello currently finds something with the blade. Deflects everything, ends up getting two, and now Shinigami trying to hang it around. Kabalata just has to eventually go and die on this point here to try to set up for a recontest. Give it as much time as possible, but this is not going to be a pretty touch.
It is not, and I'm surprised we're still seeing Livico come out on the Orisa here. Who's going to be your touch now?
Can they
Will
make
they
it?
even be able to get out in time? Barely.
Has to use the gold form. WebTube is going to have to be the hero to push this team forward. Livico gets hit right on. Immortality Field taken care of right here. And ladies and gentlemen, if you had any doubts of Factor X before this match, they have surely been deleted.
I mean, we didn't have doubts about Factor X. We could definitely see this kind of performance coming out from them. But I wonder where Elements is. Like, this is not the Elements team that we saw throughout the regular season where they were dominating every team. Jodello getting play of the game here. I mean, right now, Factor X is firing on all cylinders, and Elements, it seems like they're down one or two. They have moments. They really do. But it's just not enough here. Factor X, it seems like once they figure out what they need to do in every map, and again, smart swaps coming out for them this map help them immensely. They never looked back once they got control of this one.
No, they never did. They got stopped maybe once in that situation, and that ended up really being it. And now this is a scenario for Elements where this is not, you didn't expect them to be pressed up against the wall this early. Again, we both know that this Factor X team is 100% a threat, as Dex, I think it might be bugged again, because they definitely didn't pick a map or bans yet. Either way, we'll figure that out momentarily. But, I mean, yeah, what's up?
Go to the stats.
I'm going there right now. I was already going there. Chat, tell them I was going there. Tell them I was going there. We're there now. Be my guest.
Well, I think the most glaring obvious thing coming out of the gate is the fact that no one on Elements even got 10 limbs.
Bit of
Everyone on the side of Factor X had 20, at least. And again, this DPS line right now for Factor X is making a world of a difference. You look at that right there and say that 63 combined elims is insane. I mean, especially Petal, a 9.33 KD ratio. They were having themselves as map. Same thing with Jodello. 17 and a half. The only other person not above 10 was LCS with 7, but they were playing support that entire time. I mean, you go back to round 1 and look at the stats and say, yeah, Elements could win that one. Factor X, you could make the argument for. This one, though, you can't make the argument for. This was a straight up domination by Factor X. And outside of that first fight win there for Elements on the attacking side, I don't think we ever truly saw them be as aggressive or as dominant the rest of that map.
I mean, 100%. I mean, if you want to even put it in even darker terms here for Elements, Jodella had more eliminations than the entirety of Elements combined, which is an insane stat to hold as a player. It is utter insanity. But you said it yourself there, is that Elements, in their own right, had a lot of their moments back on their original attack. Again, they were able to get through that first point with one singular fight, but it's one of those scenarios where it felt like more a Factor X messing up in their initial engagement. Romani ends up being super far ahead. Watu isn't able to heal them 1,000 per second. That's just not how support works, unfortunately. And they just aren't able to survive the fight. And once you're down your tank that early, there's not a whole lot you're really able to do unless you have ultimates to kind of supplement and pull a fight back. Going to that second point, they had an initial good start. Honestly, that first fight or two, they had something really moving. But the moment that Factor X took control of that high ground, they held on to that for so long. They took what might have been nearly 5 minutes off of that clock, which, even though that's a strong area for defense, to hold on to that for 5 minutes, that is not an easy task whatsoever.
Yeah, Elements, I mean, we were talking about there a couple times. They had a good number of ultimates coming into a lot of fights. But it just seemed like either they were being used at the wrong times. I mean, I could go back and look at a couple amp matrices that came out there from Elements. They were just using the wrong spots there. And they're easily kiteable by Factor X. And while they were kiting, no one for Elements was trying to push the cart, try to draw them out to it to slow it down. I mean, it was a very kind of split play style from Elements, which is something we didn't see. And I highlighted it there from Factor X on the defensive side. Especially when you saw ultimates come out, you saw the entirety of Factor X collapse onto Elements, not once, but multiple times to make sure they won the team fight.
I mean, yeah, that's what happened near a lot of these situations. It was a scenario where Elements weren't really given the room to breathe because they know Elements to be a team that is definitely willing to get aggressive, that's willing to do what they need to do to win a fight and do it first. But Factor X is kind of taking away their ability to do so by doing the exact same thing, but doing it even faster, making it as difficult as possible. Hell, the fact that Petal was over on that Widowmaker during their attack, it made it so Kabbalata wasn't really able to do anything. They're on that Pharah, but they have to hide so far away to the point where they can't get any of these good pot shots, and the only person they were really able to hit in that situation is Romani, which at that point, is just feeding all church and supports more and more. But either way, we're still trying to figure this scenario out. It feels like this is just a thing overall right now because Warfist and Phoenix Rising going through the exact same situation. It's just a situation with how today is going. I don't know if that's how it is with other divisions, but as far as I know, I'm pretty sure South America is the only division doing this right now at this moment.
Yeah, South America is the only division going on at the moment. North American, at least expert, will be starting here in a little bit over an hour.
Yes.
But this is an interesting thing because it gives both these teams times to really think about what they need to do here. Factor X, there's not much different I could say here. There's not much different you need to do. I mean, outside of first point back on Ilios, you look like a completely different team. They made smart swaps at the right times. Elements, I think that's one thing that kind of hurt them, especially when you go back to Ilios, especially on Lighthouse. They made swaps, but they weren't at the most inopportune times, and you really need to see probably one or two more swaps come out to really assure the composition they were trying to get running there. And then you can go with the defensive point or defensive second point push on Hollywood. I think you kept the Mercy just a little bit too long while the rest of your team was trying to figure out what to do. And that kind of just shows a little bit of indecisiveness, and it really did come back to bite them because, Hunter, over 5 minutes for Factor X going into that third point. I mean, that might be one of the highest times I've ever seen going into third point on Hollywood.
Yeah, the first and second point are not really meant to be advantageous to the attackers. It falls into the defenders a lot of the time. I mean, Dex, the amount of times that we have gotten to cast this map of Hollywood, and the amount of times where teams are stopped, like near that last corner of second, some teams that don't even finish that first point. It's something you see on a lot of different maps, like this Hollywood map. But in this situation, once you're able to get past that, once you have that momentum, things kind of change up during that third point sometimes because obviously it's a bit of a tonal switch. The dive doesn't keep working like it does in that first or second point. But with the style that Factor X was running, they didn't really have to change anything. They made the initial swaps after they got their first point, after doing the TP shenanigans, and they just kept running it down and running it down. And unfortunately, it was a scenario where maybe perhaps Elements wasn't taking advantage of the fact that they had as many high grounds as they did. They kept trying to play close around that corner. Luvico was hanging around there for a long time, but eventually, Factor said, hey, there's an Orisa here. Let's kill it. And just literally just target focused in. It was as simple as that.
Yeah, and I mean, it goes back to the big difference that we saw on map 1, where Factor X really started to look like the better team. It was their aggressive play style and some heroic plays coming out from support line on Ruins, but they got really aggressive after that moment, and they just kept it up here on Hollywood. And I mean, we talked about Romani maybe playing a little bit too aggressively, but it kind of shows you how they want to play or how Romani really wants their team to play there. They were playing aggressive to the point where we thought it was really hindering them on that defensive side.
Mm-hmm.
WebTube came down, dropped down an Ant Matrix, and turned that entire defensive round around for Factor X, and then they just never went back. They continued being aggressive. They were always the first ones to throw out ultimates as well, which a lot of times you don't see from the defending teams unless they feel like, hey, we can find 1 or 2 picks here. But they were not afraid to throw 1, 2, 3 ultimates into a fight just to make sure that they won it. And that is something where, especially at this point in the season, if you're Factor X, you're nailing it on your aggressiveness and in your aggressiveness level here. I mean, Elements seems to be struggling against it here. And I think that's one thing that Elements didn't necessarily have to deal with a lot in the regular season was teams trying to be aggressive into them. Because I feel like for the majority of the time, Elements just had better players all around, so they could deal with that aggressive play styles coming out from other teams. But right now, we know Factor X is a team that, well, can beat Elements here, and you're starting to see the cracks show up in Element Shield.
Yeah, because again, to know the previous matchup between these two, that was in that very first week, which, to be fair, is a very long time ago for that game to happen, to really be able to give comparison, because Elements started really strong. Factor X had a bit of a slower start than some of the other teams did. It's a team that kept gradually getting better and better and better. We'd be able to see them a couple times throughout the series or throughout the season, and how well that they have been able to continue developing. And it's at this point now where Elements has, in all fairness to the South American region, has had a string of opponents that they were competing better than, that they had a role that they were simply going with against a lot of these teams. And then they ran into Warfist, and that's when we saw them not just bleed for the first time, but get kicked down for the very first time. And this right now is their struggle to be able to get back. And whether it's going to be a reverse sweep and Factor X, ends up kind of just unfortunately falling down, or maybe it's a situation where Elements have to be kicked down to the very bottom and go up against a game who most likely is going to be Phoenix Rising to try to pull it back, because Dex, it would be a devastating affair if Elements just win out in straight 0-2 fashion to the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you join the lobby?
No, I did not, because it says on hold still.
They're doing what happened last
okay,
week.
let's do that again then, if you're in there.
I'll get you back in.
Yeah, let me I'm waiting, standing by.
I think LCS had tried to invite you.
Yeah, probably. Me a dummy. I forget. I miss things sometimes. But either way, we at least know Circuit Royale is going to be the third and potential final map. What we don't know yet are the bans. I feel like we could probably ask what the bans were. I feel like that's... Oh, we're finding out right now. We get to find out in real time. I love it. What do you think it's going to be? What are you thinking?
This map in particular, I think you're going to get rid of Widow if you're Elements, and if you're Factor X. If you're Factor X, I think, honestly, you want to go after that support line again. I think that gave Elements a big problem without the Kiriko here. So you get rid of what you would probably expect. Maybe you should just ban out Iari, expecting Elements to try to maybe run that kind of composition here.
I mean, yeah, 100%. Another potential, actually, well, another pick I could potentially see coming out here, which, by the way, Widowmaker is gone. That makes sense. That takes my idea out of contention there. But yeah, the support line would probably be the easiest thing to go to, because I don't think there's a tank you particularly want to throw out there that you would want to get rid of when it comes to Luvacolo, because I think you just want Romani to have complete flexibility to go over to the Orisa or over to the Uramatra, and maybe even the Sigma in these cases, because obviously this is one of the few maps where Sigma really does start making appearances. But Ana is the other ban in this scenario, which I guess isn't too surprising at the end of the day. It's getting rid of a potential support option for them, so it's fair enough. Ooh.
Yeah, especially for this map. Like I said, I thought Iaru might be the ban here, but Anam does make a lot of sense. Again, with this, especially the first couple points on this one being long sight lines where Ana will find a decent amount of value. No nano as well. I mean, it allows the teams to kind of play a little bit more freely, both of them. Sounds like we're gonna have a sub coming in here for, I believe it was Elements, which I mean, Hunter, at this point, I mean, backs are against the wall. You're gonna be bringing in a sub here. You're gonna be making a change just to try to give your team a little bit of a spark. But I mean, you're really putting a lot, I think, onto that player who's coming in right now to be a big difference maker here. However, no Widowmaker does mean Petal. I mean, they lose one of their hit scan players, but we've seen them play Cass. We've seen them play Ashe. I imagine they would play Hanzo, and I imagine they would also play Soj, so they still have options.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what the swap is going to be, because we do know the two substitutes that are on this Elements team, which is Inverse and Nitrial right now. But by the looks of it, we saw a name go through momentarily. Samurai, I believe, is probably just a name they, use that isn't quite matching what their profile suggests. I'm going to find out who that is momentarily. But either way, the substitute was made, actually, with the fact that that's who ended up getting taken out, because I believe that ended up being Kabbalada who got taken out, so it is a DPS substitution, which is interesting, because I think Kabbalada's had a decent game so far overall, but
Kabbalada, I think, has been by far probably the most consistent DPS player for Elements this round, but it kind of just comes down to what they've been playing, and normally they've been playing that Tracer. They've been playing those heroes you want to get in the backline. So you might be looking at maybe a double hit scan coming out here for Elements, just to try to give Factor X a little bit more pressure, especially someone like Petal, who hasn't been pressured out. I mean, multiple times on Hollywood, they were just sneaking around on a flank to get behind the entire team. And it was Shinigami, Shinigami, who did find them out one time. But the other times, Petal was just able to find one pick, and the rest of Factor X just collapsing on the rest of Elements.
I mean, yeah, that's ended up happening a lot of the time, but I agree in your notion that it could just be a double hit scan situation. It could go down the route where, in the situation, maybe you pull out something akin to, like, maybe like an Ashe Sojourn, maybe the Ashe, I can't think of her name. Oh, information?
No, I would say May could potentially be what we see here on the
honestly, yeah, you're right. We have seen it a few times, and honestly, it's had a really high success rate, at least for this very first point. In fact, I forget who you saw last week. A team just barreled through the first 2 points because they simply kept walling off the Sigma. The Ramatra would just go into Nemesis form, and the Sigma can do absolutely nothing to stop it. So, honestly, it'd be a great idea in this situation. It feels like something that Elements might want to take advantage more of in this scenario, because even if you're able to cut off Romani, who's in that Nemesis, or not Nemesis form, but, jeez, why am I'm blanking out for no real reason here, ladies and gentlemen, but, I should say their Nemesis form is what they're trying to use in that scenario. At the very least, it forces it out, and it does create an easier fight for you in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, Ice Wall is just there to try to force out utility from the other side, whether it be Nemesis, whether it be Immortality, Suzu, just anything from that support line. We will say this. Samurai, it sounds like, is actually Nitral, one of the subs for Elements here, but right now it seems like the teams are trying to figure something out because different names.
Yeah, so...
but...
So we'll see what the situation is, obviously, because obviously we don't know for sure what the scenario is at hand, but usually you need to go in because there are names and accounts that are connected, and when you play one that's outside of it, the system doesn't recognize it. And if it's a scenario where you have to do a custom lobby like this, if you are playing an account that wouldn't have been auto-invited, obviously it's not going to work out. And if you use it in a situation like this, it might become a scenario where you might have to go back and replay this map, and it ends up being a whole scenario. So right now they're just trying to make sure everything is in place. That way there is no issues with what Faceit is going for, what they're going for. But at the very least, it does give Elements more time to kind of game plan what they want to do, because if the sides stay the way they are, it is going to be Elements that's going to be defending first.
Yeah, I think that is Factor X. I think they gave Factor X the choice there, which I believe that is what should be how it does go. So Factor X wants to attack first, which I don't blame him, especially with how many times we've seen first point holds be followed up by even better first point holds.
Yes.
Attacking first on Circle Royale is not necessarily the worst thing, but again, if you're Factor X, I think this long kind of break here between maps actually hinders you a little bit, hurts you a little bit, because you were honestly on fire that entire round on Hollywood, the entire second round on Hollywood. I mean, you truly didn't lose a fight. Hell, you only had a couple members die maybe once or twice. I mean, it was a round that you want to have that map end really quickly, start the next map almost immediately to carry that momentum. Now that momentum's all gone, you're seeing a sub come in here for Elements. So we might be seeing basically going back to almost how the teams were coming into the series back in map 1 here now. And I mean, if we do get that sub here for Elements, it could be a big difference maker here and getting them back into the series.
Yeah, because you do have some players that come in and are kind of just the momentum changers. It's what some players just end up kind of falling into that role of, because obviously typically players fall around the ideology of just being a specialist player. Like you have your hit scan specialist, you have your dive tank specialist, you have a secondary flex support, so you can run double flex. That's just kind of how it is in a lot of these rosters. But sometimes you have that player that just comes out when things aren't doing too good. Someone that is able to go in, really hype up the team, that is able to get them into a better spot. So I'm hoping that's what the situation is for Elements, because obviously we don't want a 3-0 game. We want to have the map 5. You know, we want to go the distance and see what happens and what Elements can really offer in this scenario. Once again, their backs are very much against the wall. But I think it's going to be very telling within that first defense to see if their style is going to change at all. Because if it's another scenario where you simply have Factor X come out there, TP out, do their shenanigans, and cap under 2 minutes, it's going to be really hard to feel an inspiration of confidence there, because Elements need to make that impression early on.
Yeah, but if all that happens, Elements, it might just be one of those moments where they lock in and they truly come back that way. We have definitely seen that in the past where we've counted teams out. We've looked at immense time banks and said there's no way they're going to do this. They're going to get at this point and then just have it all end. But I mean, this Elements team, again, they were, in our opinion, probably the best team in this tier up until last week.
Yes.
And granted, that's because we hadn't necessarily seen Warfist just yet, but Warfist is right now tearing through Phoenix Rising. I mean, I looked at some of the stats for those two maps, and Hunter, they were a lot like what Hollywood was, both maps. So it kind of tells you right now that Warfist team is the real deal. But right now, it sounds like they are nearing, or at least looks like they might be nearing getting this map started. LCS has confirmed the bans to me, saying that they were Widow and Ana.
Perfect.
So again, I think those are two really good bans here, especially considering how we saw Petal play Widow. You don't want that to be a problem at all. You don't want Petal to be taking over the series, but at times, I mean, Petal has been taking over this series, taking over maps, and when they start to get hot, you start to see Jodello pick it up as well, like they did last map. I mean, Petal, they were finding pick after pick, but Jodello ended that map with the most elims in the lobby, I think with 35. They played out of their mind right now. And Factor X is truly playing out of their mind. They are trying to get a huge upset here, Hunter, because, I mean, you go back 2 weeks ago in this tier, and we were casting, I think it was Elements and Pumas, and saying, like, hey, the loser of this one has to have everything go perfectly for them to make playoffs. And Factor X turned it on.
Yeah.
And they've not looked back since.
No, they haven't. And It's very much like a Shikigami situation where something has caught fire at some point in the season, and like you said, Factor X has not looked back. They have been putting their all into every single game, and it clearly shows. And right here, this game is kind of the fruits of that labor, because if we were going to a certain point and we would have talked about who we think could win this whole thing, I would say like 3 or 4 weeks ago, we would have just thrown up the names Elements and Warfist, because they were the 2 undefeated teams, the ones that were continuously getting wins. But Factor X is that team that could also go ahead and pull this out if they keep this level of momentum going. Obviously, we're gonna have to see what happens when they walk into a team like Warfist, if we end up getting to that point, because who knows in these kinds of brackets. But I'm excited to see that match when and if it does end up happening, because if they're going into that game off of the back of a potential 3-0 victory versus Elements, they have every reason in the world to keep the confidence that they have been bearing throughout these last few weeks, a confidence that they have most definitely earned.
Yeah, and I will say this. Thank you, everyone who's been putting up with this. This has been a long little break here. So I'll say this right now why we're having this little bit of delayed break. We're going in now. We are going in. But Samurai, who I believe is coming in, who is Nitral for Elements, because the names aren't the same, they just wanted to make sure everything was going to be good as the teams themselves are making this lobby. So it seems like everything is resolved here. We will be heading into Circuit Royale now, and Hunter, I'm going to be honest, I didn't expect me coming into map 3 saying, hey, could be our final map of the series for either teams. I thought we would be going to map 4, potentially map 5, but right now Factor X is showing us maybe just a little bit too much here for Elements to deal with here. And you do see Samurai coming in here, gonna be playing the hit scan, and this is what we kind of thought coming into this map here with the sub, that they would be going for that double hit scan kind of play, because the flex DPS just hadn't necessarily been working out for them just yet. I think the double hit scan will give Factor X a little bit more of a problem here. Jodella, though, sticking on the Symmetra would be really, really fun to see. Petal, because of Widow's ban, over onto the Soj themselves. LCS is the biggest wild card, because I don't believe they're going to stick with the Zen.
Probably not, but it wouldn't shock me if they decided to go over to, I wasn't going to say the break, I won't pretend like I was, but either way, I imagine Odella is going to TP them over to that left side room, and Petal and LCS are going to take that top left corner, and LCS is basically going to act as a tank for them. At least that's just an assumption, that's a theory at the end of the day, but to be honest, I might be right. We'll find out momentarily.
Yeah, but right now, I mean, again, the Sim TP, you have to be ready for it here now, because you cannot get ran down like you got ran down in Hollywood.
Yeah, exactly. Right now, Livico just, again, doesn't have a wall to be able to stop them from progressing backwards. So for the time being, Livico gonna be able to survive. Early give up of this initial air right now, but they're gonna push in momentarily, try to find someone like Jodello, who does get low, but is gonna have a really good ability to simply hold on to where they are as Nemesis form being activated. Jodello ends up going down throughout that whole endeavor somehow, and now his speed being given to Livico is gonna make it difficult as Elements gonna be pushing forward, and Factor X for the time being got to do a soft retreat, and now with Romani gone, it is a hard retreat.
Hard retreat. Maybe
no retreat.
Yeah, it looks like hard retreat just gonna be death. Here, Petal looking for the edge. We'll get death instead. I'll tell you that entire kind of fight kind of fell apart just based off the first TP. It's because Jodello was definitely looking to get the TP up onto the bridge, but instead they got up onto the car that's right there instead. And I think that one thing right there kind of messed up that entire play there for Factor X. You see Jodello immediately swap off the Sim, now going over to a Genji. We saw him wreak havoc last map on it, but Samurai coming in, they've started off here really hot, Hunter.
Yeah, Cleanse being used as Livico forced into an uncomfortable position, has to give up the high ground, but yeah, with that LCS, it's hard to do a whole lot of progress. You can still try to force a fight in a 5v4 without your Brig, but at this point, if you're Elements, you're able to just hold on as Factor X is just going to keep trying to build Old Church.
Right now, I mean, if you're Factor X, you just need to find some early pick. That's what really helped you last time, but you're going to just have to run away for the moment.
Yeah, bit of a rough scenario with Shadella that should be forced out over on that Genji as they just have to wait it out. Now Shinigami is going to have their bolo shot here with 2 minutes already down. I mean, Factor X starting to slow down a little bit as Flux has been activated. Bolo shot as well. Everything thrown in. LCS, though, gets deleted as Romani going to try to build up towards that annihilation. But honestly, Dex, I don't think they're going to need it at all.
I mean, you might see a touch come back out here from Elements, but that Orbital Ray was put in the perfect spot. Mocha, though, coming back in with their own.
This is a risk and a half to try to pull this one off right now, but it's potentially working out. The problem is Romani is just an unstoppable machine. That's what happens when you're in that Annihilation form in a fight like this. That Ramatra just does not die.
Yeah, I mean, Romani has shown us that they are very flexible no matter what kind of composition you want to be playing. Dive, brawl, poke, it doesn't matter. They can play everything here. And no big swaps coming out here right now for Elements, but you look at what they're going to have to deal with here. A Rally, a Blade, and an Overclock coming up here. I mean, they're kind of far behind in Ultimates, Hunter. They really need to win a team fight here quickly just to slow it down a little bit.
Yeah, Petal trying to find something with this Overclock. Is definitely finding a lot of damage, but Mocha somehow out going down to Judello. Of all people in that scenario, does pay the price as Actron ends up getting rid of them. So it creates a 44 scenario, but still, I think you've gotten the result you wanted as you are getting very close to this next checkpoint already. But unfortunately, with the numbers returning, they're going to have to play a little careful here.
They fall back here really quickly, but again, they're coming back up to 2 ultimates that should really do them good. And Shinigami's going to have that bola shot here ready to go early. Froki needs to go up to an Amp Matrix, or it could be Kerns on the second point here, Hunter.
Yeah, Livico getting low. Doesn't really have a lot to use right now. Eventually gets run into right with the rally. Bola shot comes through, gets some bodies low. Unfortunately, no finishes coming up on Livic line. Livico gets bursted out, and unfortunately, even with this Amp Matrix, unfortunately, I don't think it's going to mean a whole lot because they get a pick, but unfortunately, a touch is not going to happen.
Yeah, that Amateur, again, one of the things I thought that we were seeing kind of a problem from Factor, or from Elements this entire series, or at least on Hollywood, was the Amateurs were always just kind of put at kind of the wrong spots.
Yeah.
That one was just a little bit too far back. If it was up a little bit further, you could have seen a little bit of a better contest coming out from Elements. Now, though, I mean, third point, 4 minutes on the clock here for Factor X. Hunter, I was worried about maybe them falling off a little bit, losing all that momentum they had. I mean, we've seen a couple bumps in the road, but they're still traveling at a breakneck pace.
Yeah, Livico is just going to get solo ulted here momentarily. Tries to go for a dash, ends up finding one, cuts through, and now that Shroud might not be too far behind. Judello ends up getting super low. He's getting a bit of care, so has to just focus on taking that scenario at hand. But right now, unfortunately, Mocha might suffer a bit of a late death. Does get inside just in time right now, but Factor X keep pushing. Elements need to regroup.
Yeah, one quick thing. We're saying the name wrong. Just say Samurai.
Samurai it
but
is.
You have Orbital, you have Annihilation, you have Overclock. You have everything you need here right now for Factor X to end this map.
Yeah, but unfortunately, there's a miss right there for Livico, who is going to be annihilated there, no pun intended. And it's going to be on the back of Samurai to pull this one back, but Petal is upgrading right now with their own. Unfortunately, a body's going to have to run on as LCS hanging around. It's a 2v3 scenario. It is just Romani hanging around and eventually should be burnt away, as unfortunately they're going to be burnt away slowly but surely as Livico comes back on the Mauga to finish things out.
And I mean, and you see this a lot, especially on this point in particular. You really need to win the final fight handily to make sure you're going to complete the map here. The spawns are too close. Lupico coming out on the Malga for a brief moment. Back over to the Orisa here now. I like this a little bit better, especially as we are this far in the map. It is just brawling at this point. You're going to play high grounds if you are Shinigami and Mocha, but outside of that, you're going to try sticking around your tank here. But it looks like Factor X, they want to try to force out a high ground fight, because if they can get one early on, it gives them a huge advantage to fall back down onto the cart. Well, there's your one.
Yeah, that's the one you needed, and Shinigami being taken care of. It means, oh boy, this could go fall down really quickly, but you do get that big onto Judello if you are Samurai. And unfortunately, Petal getting spliced into the wall right there is barely going to stay alive with 5 HP to their name. And once again, they have to back out, but to be fair, still a minute 40 on the board. It's still time for at least 3 fights here, but they're going to go to the high ground this time around.
It shows you how important Judello is in all these fights, though, with him dying there, or with them dying there first. And the fact that you saw Factor X do almost nothing, Judello is the one that's supposed to be harassing everyone on that high ground. So even though you found that early pick, it didn't really lead to much here. Now, though, Amber is coming out, you're just going to see a kite here from the rest of Factor X.
Yeah, you're still going to see Judello kind of hanging around. Romani's just going to keep pushing more and more aggressively. Judello ends up going down first and foremost, though, as Romani trying to find something, it might just be a little too deep to really do anything in this scenario. Both supports are being forced outside, though, so Livico and Shinigami are going to have no help momentarily, as Livico is just getting pushed into right now. Froki and Mocha hanging around. Froki somehow managed to get rid of Wetsu, but now Romani coming back in with this annihilation. Unfortunately, is going to lose it, as Livico will be burnt around, but to be honest, it might not matter. Samurai going to come through. Unfortunately, let's go a little too early, and now At this point, touches are trying to come through. Shinigami has come back over on this venture momentarily, but at this point, it is a slow burn, what should be a cap here for Factor X.
Cap Lupico trying to get back out, but not going to be able to. 32 seconds is what Factor X will complete the map with. I mean, a really good job there by Elements at the end, just to at least get rid of that time bank down to 32 seconds. However, I mean, we're just seeing the same things here again. Elements, once they get going, incredibly hard to stop. Apparently, Lupico got 4 there. Too bad it was just a moment too late. But I mean, again, I'm just looking at the stats here. A much different round, a lot closer when you look at the stats. But it doesn't tell the whole story. It really doesn't. Just the first 2 points for Factor X. I mean, outside that first point where the TP just didn't end up working out for them or going where they wanted to go, they came back out, lost one more fight, and then just started to roll through. I mean, you're seeing value in ultimates coming out here. Romani found so much with the Annihilation, but it was really Web2's Orbital Ray that got them that first point because they used it out. Even though they lost one member beforehand, down 5-4, 4-5, they were just able to go in with all that damage, all that healing that the Orbital Ray provides and just do so much, especially to Lupico, who you are just seeing having to be that front line, which as Sigma can work out in the right situation. That just wasn't the time here. But coming out of the gate, not necessarily a surprise here what we're seeing from Factor X. On the other side, though, Samurai on this Bastion. Ooh. I imagine it's a tease pick. I wouldn't hate it, though. I really wouldn't hate it.
It's real.
It's real. I like it. I like it for this reason. Just so much damage being thrown at them. Yeah, you have Jodella who can deflect it back at them. You have Romani's shield. But you want to force those out early. That's the whole reason that they're coming out with this Bastion, to force out util early so that they can dive on them after that, or try to play fast. Shinigami on the Mei and Hunter. We've talked about what these Meis can do on this map.
Yeah, it can be very effective, and that's why Romani is going to have to play a little carefully here, and is not being so aggressive in this scenario. In fact, they're going to see the aggression push through for Elements here who want to try to find something. Samurai eventually going to have a wall put in their face to be able to stop all that damage from coming through, as Petal still hanging around on the high ground to help out, but wall has been expended. But for the time being, Elements got to be happy with how things are going for now, because they are pushing Factor X further and further back.
Yeah, but, I mean, we've seen this in the past with defensive teams. They like to just allow the card to get pushed up to that point here, but I like this aggressive playstyle coming out from here. They need to find a pick, though, and there it is.
Exactly what they needed. Wetsu going down means Romani's days are potentially numbered here when that Nemesis runs out. You see hanging around right now is Jodella trying to find something over on this high ground, but unfortunately isn't able to get a lot. Froki and Milker doing a really good job of carrying forward this back line as they're going to be pushed back more and more. Wall directly behind them, and right now they're just trying to gun them down. Unfortunately, nobody has gone on quite yet, as Froki already has an Matrix ready to go.
Petal, though, has their own overclock, and both support ultimates coming out here from Elements, Hunter.
This is a risk gonna have, especially if Romani ends up getting this ult on, because if that Annihilation comes online, there is not that they're going to be able to do to stop it. Unfortunately, it almost 100% is going to come online here, and they are waiting for it. And in fact, it's not even needed, but they do end up popping both, so this fight is in their favor. But at the end of the day, Dex, you and I both know they did not need both.
They did not need both, and you might have even heard my reaction there when both those came out. It was not a good one. However, Web2 dying so early on is actually going to come back to help them out here, because they're going to have Orbital this fight. Rally will be ready as well, and you're going to need those two, especially when you have the Mortar Strike, you have Blizzard, you have Terra Surge coming up here. You're going to need a lot coming into this next engagement just to try to survive it. But one thing I've been commenting on this Factor X team throughout the night, they are kiting ultimates really good. They got rid of Amp and Orbital Ray last fight without losing a single body.
Yeah, Lupico is, by the way, pretty hard in there to have taken as little damage that they have. Rally comes online. Romani is going to get bullied, though, and Freeze catches on to 3, and it is them getting cleared away. Samurai with a 3K, and Wetube got to go tell the story to their fallen comrades, as Elements will be able to push into first point, and we'll have a little under 4 minutes to get going on second.
Yeah, but big thing here for Factor X is that they got these good spawns. And LCS making a swap here as well, going over to the Kiriko. I think they don't want to deal with the potential of getting frozen anymore. So that's a good move here from them. Here comes them artillery barrage, though.
Yeah, trying to find something is going to deal some damage at the end of the day, but unfortunately nobody going down. Investment here from Webtube and Petal as bodies being thrown into the corner right now. Jodello still ends up going down, so the Maypig is still working wonders. Has to kind of hide away momentarily as Samurai getting super below, eventually getting burnt away. And it looks like this focus is eventually working out as Petal. Already 2 to their name, and unfortunately Froakie is in no man's land.
I mean, they will find LCS, and with still having Luvico push the card here, I mean, you could still try to do something here, but the smarter thing to do if your elements would just be get out.
Yeah.
You really just need to reset here. You cannot afford to lose Luvico like you just lost Froakie.
Yeah, Luvico would indeed be devastating, but it looks like they're going to indeed stay alive here. Samurai have been working up further towards that ultimate, but to be fair, that ultimate, unfortunately, doesn't have a lot of good utility unless it's combined with something else.
Right now, you do see Elements getting back to the cart. Romani, Annihilation ready to go here. Blade as well. Same thing with Petal's Overclock, but Orbital Ray coming out here early on. Romani is in a predicament.
Ooh, it doesn't even pop. Doesn't even pop the Annihilation in time. Yeah. So now they're gonna have it for this next fight. But to be honest, if you just keep pushing with 3 people on this cart, I mean, Romani and Jadella probably aren't gonna get back like perfectly in time for a clean touch.
I mean, you might have to have one sacrifice out here, and you're looking at Petal, you're looking at Jodello. Who is it going to be? I think at this point it's going to be no one!
Whoa! Oh, no! That is an unfortunate scenario playing into a May as 3.5 minutes on the clock, and the LCS goes down, so now Luvico might just Terror Surge here to pull him back in to confirm some kills, but don't end up doing so. Luvico more than confident in their abilities to snipe them down as Jodello trying to find something with the Blade. Unfortunately, not coming their way as Froakie does invest the Ant Matrix, which I think is not the correct call to consider, but they still have a big ult bank, so they might have just felt, hey, let's close this one out quickly.
Yeah, they wanted to win. That was it. They just wanted to win that fight there. Maybe try to force another ultimate out from the other side, but I think everyone on the side of Factor X understood the situation. Just get out. If they got that ultimate out, like, hey, that was their get outside. We've seen that already from a lot of these teams, or both these teams in the series here. But 3 ultimates now ready for Elements, 4 though ready for Factor X here, and they're slowing the cart down.
Yeah, and Shinigami ends up being, I mean, they literally give up the fight on the high ground and go and get rid of Shinigami, which honestly just makes it a really tough scenario now for Elements to really do anything without their May. And in fact, they are in a really rough scenario as going for the Terror Surge and the rush is being used in response here. And people are low on both sides, unfortunately. It is all Elements that are falling apart, and Factor X should be able to get a nice slow burn here to clear out the point.
And here's the thing, I'm okay with 2 ultimates being used there by Factor X, because they're still basically in the same kind of ult economy that Elements is. Yeah, you're going to have an Orbital Ray ready to go, but Samurai's Artillery Barrage did not find as much last time. Shinigami's Blizzard, though, that was the big difference. That really helped them get that first point. And honestly, Hunter, it's going to need to be used here to get this cart rolling here on 3rd point, but with how Factor X is playing right now, kind of split up, it's going to be hard to find a lot of value unless you're just targeting one person.
Exactly, and Samurai is entering that point where they might want to be thinking about investing their ult here. Going to see the slide out there from Petal, giving up that corner, but now here comes the investment from both sides. Shinigami hoping to find something with this freeze. It needs to catch on to Romani. Romani, though, doesn't end up getting caught, so Samurai ends up going down as a result. Romani freezes momentarily, but is still activated in that Annihilation. Unfortunately, the numbers game is just fending too much away from their favor, and now minute 20 on the clock here. 1 fight territory for Elements as they might be able to finish this map out.
Swap coming out here from Petal was on the bench and now going over to the Freya here for the moment. Jodello has a Blade. Romani back out on the D.Va. I like this pick here for them, especially if they can find a team fight win, but they lose Petal early. They've been key this entire series.
Yeah, and Ant Matrix currently given over to Samurai right now is just trying to drill away. Romani getting taken out of the mech, likely not going to last long aside of it. And now it is the Hero Blade that has to come online for Jodello right now. Slicing and dicing through, manages to find one, and Samurai in a rough scenario, but Samurai manages to get rid of Petal, and they're pushed back more and more. It's one more touch available, but it doesn't happen. It's an extra 16 seconds here for Elements, who currently keep their hopes of getting to the upper finals alive.
Yeah, and like we said coming into this map, they needed something. They really needed something, and Samurai really started to show up there. Or they've really started to show up a lot this map, but they came clutch there at the end. The same thing with everyone on the team. I mean, just being able to kind of push through. I don't necessarily think Factor X was in a good spot. I just don't know what necessarily to say the problem was, whether it was ultimate usage or just getting caught out, but we've seen that from both teams here tonight, so it seems to be just a normal kind of way both these teams play here. But now though, WedTube coming out on the BAP, LCS now going to be taking the reins on the Juno. I like this kind of play, for them. They want to try to have that double damage support ultimates coming out. Actually, I think they're always going through and picking perks here at the moment. But if you're Factor X, you only have a minute here. You cannot afford to just let elements allow you to get to the bridge and then lose a fight, because that's basically all the time you're going to get.
Yeah, exactly, in this scenario. And when having so little time, you don't really get that necessary time to be able to try shenanigans here. So Jodella being over on the Symmetra, it might just be something for the TP, but to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if Jodella stays on it, because again, Jodella has proved to be willing to stay on it, and in fact, for this minute of time, they are indeed going to try to make it work once more.
And they need a TP to work out this time, get to the bridge, not to the cart, and they're just going to get to that opposite high ground right there, but it's only Jodella that went up there.
Yeah, and they'll give it up pretty easily, but to be fair, I think that's completely natural. But Livico has to be careful here, being on the Arisa, walking into a Symmetra. Not the best case scenario, being the tank, but you got to hang around this scenario. Keep feeding charge into Froki, into Mocha here, because any of these supports, all charges online, are massive. You see the immediate aggression coming through right now. Body's getting low on both sides, but nobody has gone down quite yet, and Livico has to be very careful to go in too deep, because if they are caught out by the squad, their health will be decimated very quickly, but so far doing an excellent job of managing the space.
I mean, you're really just looking for the first pick on either side. Froki very low, rogue turn almost takes them out, Hunter, but there's the first pick. It's onto the worst person you would want to be on for elements. Yeah,
but Samurai is still hanging around. It's a 4v4 situation. Romani is going to push up a little bit. You're likely going to have to surrender first point here, but you can still set up for a very quick engage if you get a secondary touch, but it looks like they might have to go play for that first corner and hope that Shinigami can hit good on this bolo.
I mean, they could try to come in. They could try to come back into a really quick re-engage here, but they're not. Like you said, they're going to play for this first turn. Petal, though, building up this overclock really needs to happen fast. Wed tubes, amp matrix. That could be something that just decimates everyone on the side of elements here.
Yeah, rough scenario as they're getting forced away further and further. They need to stay on this point. Bolo gets thrown in, and it follows the TP, I think? I have no idea how that happened, but it's a full-on investment, and now Petal is back. Gets deleted on the scene now. Romani needs to try to get this Annihilation online. So far, has the health and sustainability to be able to do so, but they're the last body remaining on the point, and even though they get the ultimate, this will be the final resting place 18 meters past the first point. To be fair, for a minute, it's a fair enough distance, but now, Elements, their goal is very clear to keep themselves in this game.
Yeah, and LCS was so close. You heard my reaction there when they died. 98% on an orbital array with the Annihilation. You never know what might have happened. It might have at least netted them maybe a couple more meters, but that could have been it, or a team fight, and allows both teams to come back into another engagement. But like you said, first point in overtime with a minute is good. Getting that little bit of meterage after it, it's just extra, in my opinion, Hunter. Basically, if you get any point, any mode where you can go in overtime, if you can cap first point, whatever you get after it is just extra. So now, Factor X goes over to the defensive side. And I mean, you can kind of see, it looks like Petal is just picking perks here. Same thing with Jodello, making sure that they can get back out there. But WebTube and LCS going to be sticking with what they played last round. Romani as well on to the Ramatra. Outside of that, no big surprises for Elements. Froki and Shinigami, yeah, they're just picking perks here again. But I'm trying to think what's the smartest thing for Factor X to do here. Do they play this first corner and take a fight, knowing that you're still going to have the time after to probably get another fight before the checkpoint? It looks like they're just going to fall back to bridge. I don't blame them for that, but I honestly would have liked to see him be aggressive, because that's normally caught Elements off guard in the past.
Well, to be fair, Jodello is still kind of hanging around in this area, but it won't be too hard for them to get pressure right now. Jodello hoping to get somebody low enough so they can simply dash in like that. Unfortunately, nobody low at the time, but they're being forced back further, and Romani is able to be frozen away thanks to the major perk on Shinigami, and I imagine in due time, they're going to be forced out of this initial corner.
This is the kind of playstyle Factor X is playing here where you would normally expect to see a life leader just being able to pull out Romani if they got too far.
Yeah, Jodello getting super low, by the way, and no, that is not the exchange you want. Romani's now in a scenario. Jodello ends up being burnt away, and now Romani's days 100% are numbered. They're going to die over on the cart, though, sustaining for a little bit longer, but with that being the case and 3 coming back, I think they might realistically have to give up this first point and honestly play for a final fight directly afterwards.
Yeah, first point's going to cap, and then overtime's going to happen here, so it's going to be final fight no matter what here. The biggest problem is, outside of Petal, no one on the side of FactorX has ultimates to their name. Froki, Samurai get a build to their ultimates here, and Samurai's ultimate is one that will clear people off the cart, but the fight's taken early, Hunter.
Yeah, Romani wants to run it, and it's right here and now. Everybody's inside of a room, but eventually going to come through. Froki has got the ultimate online, and Romani ends up burning away, and now Elements are putting themselves in a beautiful situation. Somebody has to eventually throw their body onto this point, and it's now on the back of Petal to make something happen, diving into the back line with Care. Unfortunately, burnt away one by one, and Elements keep their journey alive, taking away Circuit Royale. Clearly not willing to go down just yet.
I mean, just a great map here by Elements. One that we said coming into it that they really needed just to figure something out here. Not only in this series, but maybe more into the next series. But getting the win here, like you said, keeps their hopes alive. And it seems like they finally figured out how to slow down this Factor X team, which some of they hadn't been able to do much throughout the night so far. But now we're into the limbo again, where we have to figure out if we're going back to a Faceit server or are we going to be sticking in this one?
Yeah, it's unfortunately a bit of a difficult situation, and there is a good chance we're staying the way that we kind of have been throughout this last map. The way I have evidence of that is Warfix Phoenix Rising are still sitting at 2-0 and on hold. So there is a good chance that they have played their third game already, and it potentially is already wrapped up, and they're just waiting for results to go through. But we're going to have to see at the end of the day, because now they're going to have to make their own choices and just essentially report them that way. But we'll figure out more about that as we can. We would love to show you the stats in that third round. Fortunately, that's not quite how it works. I mean, there were a couple like of standout ones, and I think the one that stood out that we didn't get to see a lot of throughout the series so far, impressively, has ended up being Livico, who ended up having a much better performance than we had seen previously, a lot more consistent on that tank. And honestly, having Samurai in, by the way, my god, it felt like a momentum changer throughout the entirety of that map.
Yeah, and I mean, the biggest difference, like we said, we thought Samurai was coming in to play double hit scan, and on their first attack, yeah, I mean, their first defense, yeah, that's exactly what they did. They played double hit scan, and it worked out for them. But then attack, you saw the slight difference. It allowed Mei to be played. It still allowed a hit scan to be played. And you saw Shinigami on that Mei just cause a lot of problems, especially there in that overtime round. Romani was trying to back out in that Nemesis form, but the ice wall kept them in front of that amp matrix, making sure that Elements at least forced this series to 4 here. Looks like it's...
No.
Okay, so it looks like they wanted to bring us to Midtown, but we've already played. The map pool that Escort is in. So, or I mean, our hybrid is in. So right now, Push is going to be the next one up on plate here for the two teams. So I believe it was Colosseo or Runasapi that's going to be picked here. And I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if we see Runasapi come out here. That seems to be the go-to for a lot of these teams.
Yeah, it ends up being the one. Remind me the last time we saw a push map that wasn't called Runasapi, to be fair. It feels like it's really been a long time since we've kind of had that situation. But
map pool.
I think it is just a map pool situation. I could probably double check other things later, but in this situation, I'm curious what the bans are going to be. As we're seeing LCS talk, apparently they are going to ban out the Orisa in this situation, which obviously would take Livico off of it, which Livico has gotten better and better at the Orisa, and it's a scenario where it might force them into a Ramatra duel, which I imagine for Romani is something that they would be pretty comfortable with. I think that they did a relatively good job on that Ramatra throughout that Circuit Royale. And that Orisa, to be fair, was giving them a fair amount of trouble. So, yeah, I don't think it's a bad pick whatsoever.
No, it's not. I feel like that's just the right way to go with it. When we've seen Livico not play the Orisa, it has really ended up working out a lot for Factor X. So this makes sense for this ban here, especially going to a push map where Orisa can really just sustain through so much and basically at times seem like they're a brick wall, especially with the shield perk, which is what we did see Livico pick in that final overtime round. I like the ban here. I mean, it forces them to play maybe something that they're not as comfortable with. Like you said, we could see that Ramattra come out. We have seen him play Winston, but wasn't necessarily the best showing. And depending on what push map we go to, really depends on, does Winston even make sense for it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really fair point here. I imagine in a situation like this, you're definitely still trying to be careful about the bans at the end of the day, especially in a scenario where if you're talking about map 5, everything opens up at that point. The map pool opens back up besides the maps that have already been picked, but you can go to any mode and kind of force it any which way you want to go, which is something that obviously is a scenario that's going to work more into the favor of Factor X, because they would get that pick if it went to 5. But Spongy saying there is currently a swap, which I'm going to imagine, as we have already seen, is likely going to... Actually, it might just be a swap back out. Kabbalada has come back in, and I imagine... I'm not sure if it's going to stay that way. Yeah, Samurai is in with Kabbalada this time, which is interesting.
If it's Shinigami is coming out.
Which,
I will say this. So the second ban is going to be Juno.
Ooh.
Which,
like
again, I like it. I do like it, but we have seen Factor X be completely fine not playing everyone's favorite Martian. So it doesn't I think it doesn't necessarily hurt them here going on to Runasapi, which I believe is the next map. Yeah, Shinigami. Okay, no, it looks like Shinigami and Kabadella are going to be in, so it's going to be Samurai that's going out, I believe.
Yeah, that would
but, I mean, Juno does find a lot of value here, but I look at this map more for Brig, for Kiri, for Lucio, and that's really what I expect. Moira would be an interesting one. We have seen both these teams potentially tease it a little bit, especially in those overtime rounds, but I feel like those were only for overtime touches.
Mm-hmm.
However, not necessarily the worst map for her. But Hunter, I think this map in particular I always talk about one specific tank going into it, and that's Queen. I feel like this map in general is just really, really good for Queen, and that is something we have seen Romani play here tonight, especially when you go back and look at Hollywood. That was a Queen that you did not want to be in front of.
No, and that might be another hidden feature of getting this Orisa, because that Orisa is pretty good at shutting down the Junker Queen during a lot of that mid-fight. And to create a scenario where if Romani wants to go out with that, it's going to make their job a heck of a lot easier to be able to pull off. But either way, getting ready to figure out what both teams are thinking about pulling out in this situation. And, I mean, from everything that we have seen, I think we know what to expect from both squads. The question is, does the tank line... does the tank line change up? Unfortunately, we were 2 seconds shy of figuring it out, so we'll wait and see momentarily. But, I mean, what's your prediction in terms of tanks, at least?
I mean, I feel like the safest bet would just be a Ramatra v Ramatra coming out here. Lubico, though, I mean, they have shown us Winston. I don't know if it's... I just don't necessarily know if Winston's the right choice here. You can play it, you can force it. I don't like it that much. I would like Diva a little bit more, which is something we've also seen Romani play. But outside of those couple tanks that I've named, I mean, Hazard was banned out map 1. You could see Hazard here. It's going to be really interesting just to see what these two teams play. It looks like the reason for why we were paused here is they wanted to transfer ownership of the lobby to someone who wasn't playing, because I believe it was LCS who was actually the one who created the lobby.
Yeah, you know, honestly, pretty fair, all things considered. You kind of want to have sometimes a neutral party, I'll say, in charge of that situation. But we'll find out momentarily how things are going to go, as it looks like, I believe we have an R in the chat from Spongy. And we're going to be getting back in here momentarily to find out what the picks are going to be. As, again, we got stopped 2 seconds shy of figuring out. But, as it turns out, it looks like our tank lines, at least from the initial set, are going to indeed be the Queen and the Hazard, making their first appearance potentially in the series.
Yeah, I mean, Hazard was banned out map 1. It made a lot of sense on Ilios for it to be banned out. Haven't seen him since. Romani, though, I mean, like I said, this is a really good Queen map. I feel like this is a good opportunity for Romani just to kind of show us what they showed us back on Hollywood. A map that I wouldn't necessarily call a good Queen map. It's not her worst map, but Romani made it look like it was the best Queen map in the world here. Petal, though, I think they're going to be a big difference maker here. Back over onto that Cassie that caused so much problems back on Helios, especially the flashbang onto Lubrico. That could just absolutely destroy him if they try to play a little bit too deep.
Yep. Gonna be another quick pause really quick as not sure what the problem is this time. I'm sure we'll figure out from chat momentarily what's going on here. But either way, I am absolutely loving what is coming up from... Oh, lobby is bug. Couple of still lobby. What happened? You can't...
I think Cabadello is getting disconnected.
Okay. Well, we'll figure out that really quick as, yeah, it has been a freaking amount of pauses. But, you know, you want to make sure everything is correct. But with that being the case, unfortunately, you wouldn't be able to restart the map in this situation. Obviously, if both teams agreed, yes. But this is likely going to be a scenario where Cabadella is going to have to simply take the reset, and Elements might have to follow suit because a 5v4 against a Queen comp like this is going to be really difficult to pull off.
Yeah, it is. It would be, honestly, just rough for them. But Hunter, going back to just Factor X here for a moment, when we saw him play Pumas on this map, they completed this map, I believe, in 4.5 minutes.
Yeah, ended up being a really quick map.
Yeah, like I think same thing with Elements. We've seen them complete this map in an astronomically short amount of time. So both these teams have the potential to really do this map quickly here. Cavallado, though, on the Tracer, I mean, we have their back here, so hopefully we'll get getting back here soon. But that's been the one question mark here this series, because if you go back to Hollywood, Cavallado just struggled. I mean, that's the easiest way to put it. I don't think they found more than 8 kills, 10. I don't think they found 10 eliminations. They struggled, and the hit scan players, or I mean the flex DPS players for just Elements has really hurt them a little bit. That's why we saw Samurai come in last map and do a really good job. But right now, it doesn't look like Caballada was able to spawn right back where they disconnected from. So they're gonna have to. That's gonna force their team to fall back here and give Factor X a good little start here.
Yeah, they're able to regroup quickly enough with Caballada being over on that Tracer instead. But this is where it's going to be really important to get a good opening fight here while you still can, trying to create a little bit of interruption right now. Is Livico. Petal is straight up taking their time. They're not trying to go beyond the bounds of what they should be able to do, but unfortunately, we have another pause here as there has been a bit of a trolling. So, I'm guessing they have it on the wrong setting.
It's on OpenQ comp.
Okay, well, we are going to go ahead and fade back to us momentarily while this gets figured out as, this is the mess that happens when things stop working, unfortunately. So they're going to have to restart lobby, put on the regular settings. You asked if it was on like that last map. It 100% was not. With how long Romani was living in the fights, no, it was not.
And this should be a quick fix, and we should be getting right back in here. But I mean, this is now going to be a little bit of an interesting chess game when we go back in, because both teams saw what each team wanted to come out with here. Do we see any slight little difference between the teams now? I think that would be a fun little kind of twist to throw in here if you're one of these teams, just to try to throw off one of these teams here, just to try to give yourself a slight advantage.
Yeah, exactly, in this scenario. And we see pauses affect teams pretty differently overall, I feel like. Some teams react to it better, some teams don't. It can sometimes matter on what the momentum is feeling like within the lobby, because while Elements do end up winning that last map, it was by a single fight at the end of the day, and it's a scenario where Romani going down first gave them a pretty simple path to moving forward and making that happen. But at the end of the day, obviously, pauses like this, unfortunate as it is, it does cause momentum to kind of just chill out for a moment. But unfortunately, we're not going to see what the result really is of that until we get back into this lobby and get things squared away. It looks like we're going to be getting back into it, though, momentarily. Hopefully, settings are correct. No DCs happening, as we'll be able to hopefully get properly into Runasapi.
Second time's the charm. Let's go. We're back. But right now, if you're Element, I think you like having these kind of long pauses. You like having these long pauses just because I think it's giving Factor X more time just to really think about what they need to do, how they need to improve from last map. And I know I'm kind of saying the exact opposite of what I was saying last time we had a little bit of a long pause where Factor X lost all their momentum, and somehow I'm saying now because of these long pauses that Elements is going to be able to keep theirs, but Factor X just lost a map.
Yep.
I think they're going to be a little bit in their head here, but I mean, at least coming out of the gate with these compositions, looks like no big differences from either side. And I like that. At least they're sticking with what they initially came out with the first time, at least for this first engagement.
Yeah, exactly. I'm excited to see what's going to be in this situation for both squads. Again, Factor X wants to play these fights very quickly, but as we saw from Luvico before we went through that last pause, Petal pretty much got deleted on the spot. Just being caught out in the wrong place at the wrong time. So hopefully the lesson is learned from them to be able to stay a little bit further out of that effective range, because we know Hazard is able to do a lot of damage in an instant.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit too much damage. And we saw Jagged Walls come out there from Luvico at that first bow kind of round we had here. They were good. They were really good in the right spot all the time, sectioning off Romani away from the rest of their team. They just weren't able to find the kill just yet. But now, I mean, you see how both these teams want to play. The card's going to open up, and Luvico going to try to give their team a little bit of an early lead, and that's what they're going to get, but it's only going to be a slight lead.
Yeah, Romani going to get the Jagged Knife pulled in. Going to get a lot of damage over onto Luvico, and eventually will end up deleting them. Nice. Going to be pulling through, and Petal is just making this day at the shooting range. As they're clearing these away, Shin Nagami decides, you know what, I'm done with this. We need a reset, and a reset it will be. As first fight, going to go over to Factor X, and all things considered, good start for them there.
Really good start for them, and honestly, you want to know how that fight what led to that fight going the way of Factor X?
Sure.
Jodello diving into the backline. It forced all the focus away from Lumico and onto basically Jodello, and that's when he saw Romani and the rest of Factor X just get rid of Lumico. And losing your tank early, Hunter, is never a good sign in any kind of team fight. But right now, I mean, look at the bot. It is casually getting towards that first checkpoint.
Yeah, they have kind of flipped around the roles here, so now it's as if Elements is the one attacking the point, which, to be honest, isn't really a bad thing, but when Kambalata gets caught out, it is a bad thing. Luvico doesn't manage to get rid of Petal, who doesn't get help quite in time, but Jodello just gets another pick at the end of the day. They're clearing these away. Jodello gets another as Mocha going to live, but realistically, this should already be the checkpoint unlocked for Factor X.
2-minute checkpoint. I mean, we talked about it. This team has been able to complete this map fast in the past, and they're picking up right where they left off. I like the target selection there from Luvico. Decide not to focus in on Romani, instead focusing on Petal, because Petal on this Cassidy is a big problem, but now you can focus in on Romani.
Yeah, Romani unfortunately gets taken down in unfortunate fashion right there, as everyone else simply going to escape, because Romani should be able to simply get the forward spawn, and Factor X should be able to regroup pretty quickly if everybody lives.
Yep, it's going to be a quick regroup here, and hey, everyone got the forward spawns. The ultimates galore, though, Hunter, are going to be ready to go at this fight. All 10 ultimates are going to be ready, and I would not be surprised if we see 8 of them be used. There's one already. What's going to be the follow-up?
Yeah, double Kasane Rush right now. Double beats around the corner as well. Jodello does have a blade around the corner, but obviously, Mocha is going to have this ult, but Luvico is the first one to go down, which means ults are just going to be stopped being invested here entirely because they realize they can't win this fight effectively without Luvico, and they take the full reset instead.
Forward spawn should be recapped here now for Factor X, and I mean, because of the cart being, or the bot being stopped at the spawn or the checkpoint last time, you can now just get right back to pushing. Still 7 minutes on the clock though, but you're slowly starting to build up this lead to the point where me and you, Hunter, always talk about. Once a team gets a big enough lead, you don't need to be looking to win fights. You used to be looking to 50-50 fights. Deadeye though, out from Petal.
Yeah, they're going to go in full speed right now. Luvico is going to get taken down for a lot of damage, but Beat going to be activated by Mocha to keep them going. Beat thrown directly back by LCS. Now Jodello doesn't have anything to stop them realistically from using this blade, and now it just has to wait for the right opportunity to go in. But everyone knows this blade is ready to go as Pulse Bomb comes up online. The blade coming up online, trying to slice through, but Boom's going around back and forth, making it really tough for them to do anything. Eventually, just has to get the mini health pack, as Shin Nagami being down means once again Factor X opening up the door, and unfortunately this lead is going to get extended further and further as Romani finishing out with the 3K.
And Romani's still holding on to this rampage here. It's going to be a big problem because, I mean, honey, you look at just the path that the bot has to go this last couple turns. It's just straight. It allows so much value to come from the rampage, but Petal, again, just being problems, finding early picks, allowing the rest of the team to do a lot, and Jodello already harassing that backline.
Yeah, and Luvico is just not living through that. Jodello can help clear things away. LCS does end up getting taken out by Mocha, But unfortunately, this is going to be another clear away, and everyone's going to have to try to survive from Elements. Knife thankfully misses, so both DPS should be able to survive, but we are entering extremely dangerous territory.
I mean, Petal, Deadeye, WebTube has Kitsune Rush ready to go here. I mean, they've been the aggressive team in the past. If they go fast here, they will catch Elements off guard.
Yeah, but Petal ends up being... Yeah. I mean, they're just caught off at the wrong place at the wrong time. Dodelo doesn't have a blade to work with yet, so really can't duel a whole lot in this scenario, though. They end up getting taken out by Shinigami. This should realistically cause the reset to come through. Is everybody going to die on the point? Everybody's going to get those spawns by a country mile. LCS dying a bit late, but it will not matter as Faceit X sitting about as comfortably as you can be.
I mean, an over 100-meter lead. And Hunter, like I said, we've talked about it a lot, especially on this map in general. 50-50 fights. If you're that team that has a big lead, you win a fight, push the cart back a little bit, fall back, just try to keep the thing going back and forth. But Kitsune Rush here to cancel out Deadeye potentially?
Yeah, Livico gets super low, ends up popping the Annihilation just to stay alive. They're going to try to go in aggressively. But 3 of the ultimates have been invested here to try to pull this one around. Shinigami gets super low. Beat finally given back by LCS after Romani has gone down, and that unfortunately is going to result in that being a little bit of a waste as Faceit X going to have to be reset, losing back-to-back fights here momentarily as they're just going to try to stall this car out for as long as they can.
You know what? I don't think that was necessarily a waste from LCS because it actually forced Mocha to use their own beat into that one. I mean, right now, that's kind of telling you how Elements is looking at this Faceit X team, that there's still scary people or scary players left on the field, even after you get rid of Romani. Jodel, though, Blade ready to go here. Same thing with Cabadella. So you can see dueling blades come out here, especially around this checkpoint. Right now, if you're Faceit X, you do not want Elements to get this checkpoint because you're going to start losing the momentum here.
Yeah, right now, Caballada does have a blade, realizes that there are no beats online for either side, coming through, hoping to get something. Petal ends up getting caught. Jodelo trying to do something on the other side as well, but as it turns out, Jodelo's getting eliminated. And Elements are steps away from unlocking that checkpoint. They will indeed get a Web 2 drives late, unfortunately for LCS and Romani, likely not too far behind.
And right now, this is one of these moments here for Faceit X. In the first 2 maps, they made really smart swaps. You might have to do that here now because you see the mirror, or almost the mirror, coming out here from Elements. The only difference is Shinigami on that Soj. That's being a difference maker. Deadeye from Petal needs to find something here, though.
Yeah, and unfortunately, barely hiding away is Mocha. So now it's a rough scenario as Romani being over on this Ramatra needs to find some level of effectiveness, trying to go in with that Nemesis to find something, but a beat and a Kitsune Rush used very aggressively here, and it's looking like it's going to have the intended result, but now the problem is, while they're going to get closer and closer, Romani is going to have an Annihilation to match Livico, and neither side actually have anything to really stop them.
Again, right now, I just think Faceit X is letting this map slip through their hands.
Yeah.
I think they need to make a swap. I just don't think this composition is working out how they really want it to anymore. Petal has gone quiet, and that's been a big factor so far. Petal's Deadeyes haven't found a single pick just yet, and hell, their Peacemaker pistol has gone silent as well.
Yeah, Livico getting lower and lower. Might be thinking about popping Annihilation. The moment Petal went in, Livico realized what they needed. They're going to go in for it. Romani going to get turned on by Livico right now, who needs all the care in the world. Jodelo's in the wrong place at the wrong time. And now, forced back further, Romani has lost it. Beat has to be invested to keep them alive. If Livico stays steady, this could be devastating as Shinigami wants to keep pulling this one forward, burying everything into Romani, who's barely holding on. Gets City Rush activated to keep the heals going, and WebTube is going to keep them up for the time being. With Livico going down, they were so close to pulling it back, but right now, they got to concede the fight and try to do it once more.
100 seconds on the time bank here. Petal making the swap over to the Soj. The mirror match is on now between these two teams. However, I mean, ultimates kind of do favor Elements here. If you're Faceit X, the main thing you want to do, just reset the spawns. That's all you want to do here. Then just play safe. Force out an ultimate from the other side. But right now, I believe Elements is going to send us to a map 5.
Oh, it is a possibility right now, but Mocha going down is pretty devastating, but Jodelo ends up being taken by Caballada, who's going to have their own blade momentarily, and now you just have to have a fast reset if you're Faceit X right here. This fight is not going to be very easy to win, but you're going to stall it out. You're going to build up to more of those ult charges and maybe try to get something out of Mocha, which the beat does come online, which even if you lose this fight at your Faceit X, you might be happy about, because now, as they somehow get rid of Romani and Petal, it ends up working out beautifully. And now Dex, I mean, It should all come down to this next fight.
It should all come down, but I think right there, that's exactly what you wanted if you were Factor X. You got rid of Beat, you got rid of Blade. Now, I mean, there's really nothing on the docket here soon. That bot gonna get there just in time, but it's not a long way away. LCS, Romani, and Petal need to build their ultimates. Web Tubes, Kitsune Rush, though, gonna come up here late in the fight. Needs to be a difference maker here for Factor X.
LCS has a beat. They could go super aggro here momentarily, but you see immediately Element's going to back off of that fight, realize they don't have to take it there. Take it out in the open. We can have a little bit more effectiveness. But either way, 10 seconds and counting. Touches need to be able to come through here. As a reminder, LCS, the longer that they wait, the more likely ultimates are going to come online. Beat is activated. Petal hoping to find something. Romani has already found one. And now Luvico holding on for dear life. Unfortunately, the road ends here, as Factor X will be able to close it out, move to those upper finals, as Elements will be sent down to the lower bracket to fight for their life.
You heard what I said when we saw Elements back out. That was the wrong move. It really was. The ultimates weren't necessarily ready just yet for Factor X, and you needed to build up to your own support ultimates right there. You're so close to your own Kitsune Rush for Elements, but falling back, I think, was just the worst thing they could have done there. You want to try to force something out from the other side. I understand that. But when you fell back, you didn't get that force out, and it put you so far behind the 8 ball that you needed to have someone make a heroic play, and you just didn't have it. Factor X went right back to being the aggressor when it came to popping ultimates, and it worked out for them in the end. And Hunter, I'm going to be honest with you, 2-3 weeks ago, I didn't think there was any chance that we'd be seeing this Elements team in the lower bracket, especially the lower bracket first round. Well, they're there now, and this Factor X team, they are an interesting one. I think Warfizz has to be ready for them.
I think they 100% have to. Obviously, we don't know fully result, but I imagine Warfizz probably managed to clear out in thorough fashion. So, assumptions galore. Warfizz versus Factor X looks like it's going to be the upper finals. Meanwhile, Elements and Phoenix Rising got to fight in that lower bracket to be able to get into the lower finals to get a chance to be in the grand finals. But ladies and gentlemen, we have already ran quite longer than we had originally anticipated. We have a game that is starting in 8 minutes, so here is what's going to happen. If y'all want to stick around, I am not cutting the stream. I am just keeping it going. So what we're going to do real quick, we're going to go to a quick 5-minute break, get our water, get set up for this next matchup. We do have the New York Giants, not trademarked, versus Yuzakura, which is which originally was Deadlock, but got picked up by the Sakura org. So hopefully we'll see some cool things for them. But we're coming to that break right now. We need a minute. We'll be back in 5 minutes for some more Faceit League action.
Congrats to Factor X.